Crossover. Oh, killer crossover. Just crossover. It just crossed him over nastily.
Another victim to the crossovers. Cross him up and sit him down.
It is time for the crossover featuring Matt Jake.
What's up, guys?
Hello.
How are we?
Good.
Great.
Oh, is this ended now?
Good.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can give that to
you
me.
can go on a new
Okay.
stream.
It's okay.
No, I don't need to go on a new stream. I'm good.
You're fine. You look great.
I just was sitting
Jake
here.
is just going to put us on the studio cam. Good job, Jake.
That's
Thank you.
perfect. Look at that.
I'm shocked you're not golfing this week, Nick Sainer,
Why do you say this?
because you're a golf man. You're a man of
am.
golf.
Have you gotten good? Are you good?
We got second place in the Firethorn Stag on Wednesday.
Well, that's pretty good
our
competition.
team shot 23 under. We lost by one.
You look like you got buttery hands. You look like
No.
you can't hit the ball.
What's up with you in
can't.
the hands?
Yeah, why are
What?
you?
What do you mean?
This is
You're always talking
uncomfortable.
about people's hands.
I'm just saying. Nick looks like the guy who's got a great short game. That's what I'm saying. You just look like a type of dude where it's like, wow, he put it in the woods again, but he's always getting up and down.
No, on Wednesday, I think we had two guys that shot 74 and a 76,
Good
and then
God.
I shot, I think, an 84,
That's really good.
which
Good
at
for you.
Firethorn I'm happy with.
84
Yeah.
is absolutely sick.
And I think our fourth guy shot like a 92.
That's awesome.
It was fun. No, I have to, Matt, I have to do a party bus tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's a very like
Our age.
yeah. You're 20 what? 27?
5.
You're 25? You're only a year older than me?
Yes.
Good God.
He's advanced.
How many weddings?
What does that mean?
How many weddings do you have this year?
I mean, you know.
It's clutch that I left the job I did when I did, because I have about 3 this fall that I was going to have to figure out a way to get out of pregame and postgame shows for. But
How many have you already had up to the fall wedding?
I have had 2 so far
Yeah.
this year. I'm in 3. The party bus, I'm in 3 more this fall. The party bus tomorrow night is for my other best friend that just got engaged.
Okay, so this is like the engagement party.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this
But,
is did they do this, when you were our age,
Back in the olden times.
back in your day where they would get
Back
engaged
before
and then
it
there would be
happened.
a whole party for the engagement, then there would be a whole party
I mean,
like
there
the
is-
bachelor party, then there would be another bridal party,
I mean, there is
then
an
a
engagement
bachelorette party,
party.
then the actual wedding. Like,
Wedding rehearsal dinner.
yes, like well, that's all standard, but like in the party for the engagement, was that always a thing? Because
It just
everyone's
depends on if people want to throw a party for you.
okay. Don't expect me to be at the engagement party.
I
Like,
don't think anybody does. Everything is just an excuse to have a party. So if you are a party person and you want a party, then you can make as many parties as you want.
I mean, we do need more. We do need to spend more quality time with our people.
I
We
agree.
love people.
I agree with that, but
Friendship.
I
I
think
don't
that
think
if
you
you're
do.
always having parties, then the actual like excitement and value of the party kind of diminishes.
Well, I don't know. I don't think anything can devalue the actual wedding.
Yeah, why don't
Good
you
point.
Why don't you just say like we're having people over, or whatever. We're doing a party bus just for fun. Would that make it easier for you to go?
Probably, yeah. I wouldn't
see-
have anything to bitch about. Yeah,
Yeah.
but then I'd be way more likely to just say no, though.
Yeah.
Like I would just be like, nah, I don't really want to do
It
that.
seems like it's actually the opposite. You're more likely to say no because you feel like it's an obligation because it's a celebration of their wedding.
No, I'm bitching about the fact that because there's the title of engagement party that I feel like I have to go to it.
That's
Are
what
we
I'm saying.
able to
That's
say
what I
Oh,
just
okay.
said.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I mean, some people say it more than others. Some people
It
say
kind of caught me off guard. I'm not gonna lie with you, Matt.
Some people say
And then
it
the
more than
second
others.
time you said it, I was like, "Whoa, okay, we might be able to say that."
What do you mean?
The B word.
The B word.
Bitching?
3.
There you go.
What?
I think you've hit your max.
yeah.
I didn't know we could say
I have a
that.
max.
Yes. Everything in moderation. Everything in moderation.
Do
I don't-
you-
like sometimes this is sort of how it works. This is definitely how it works with like the FCC. Like if you hear it, okay, it's once. But then if you hear it over and over again, it's like,
It's a
oh,
little- it's a
geez,
little
I'm going to have to
repetitive.
turn my radio station down, one
Yeah.
of those.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
say it. Ass.
Shout out to Alan.
I'm gonna say it.
with the line of the century
I'm gonna
yesterday.
say it.
He was
All right.
he ripped it yesterday in our meeting.
He was awesome. And he was just like, you know what? I'm gonna say it, guys. I'm gonna say it. We're
Which-
gonna kick ass.
Which, by the way, we haven't told people. Have you told people about our development yesterday?
It went live. It's there. It's
I know,
on.
which means we could say it out loud.
Say it.
Wait, is this breaking news?
Yeah, kind
Yes,
of.
aggregate me.
Am I a part of breaking news?
Yes.
On a station I don't even work for.
Connor Apper wants to be aggregated more than anyone I've ever met.
Wait, were you mad that I got aggregated on your show?
No, I was trying to get you aggregated again because I'm
Oh.
jealous that Schaefer got you aggregated.
You got aggregated on his show? What happened?
when I wasn't here.
How did you get aggregated?
Oh, I was talking to Schaefer was asking me questions about Love Nebraska, and so I was talking about us and Lincoln Arneal, who's a very notable writer in this world.
Yeah.
Very notable.
Very notable.
Very notable. He aggregated me, but did not tag me.
He tagged you.
No.
He didn't tag you?
Oh, that's messed up.
So then I put the meme of the dude laying there, is like pointing at me, like with holding the beer, like me.
Shout out Bill Moose. I got aggregated from Front Office Sports because of him. From the Crab Creek Chronicles, from the cornfields.
Oh, you were tweeting out excerpts?
I was tweeting out like, holy crap, he wanted them to go back to the Big 12 in like 2018.
Nice.
I got aggregated in the New York Times sports one time.
Just always one-up aggregating, man.
No,
You just got to one-up.
Actually, it wasn't
Keep
even
doing
me. It wasn't even. Yeah, keep going. No, it wasn't even me. It was when Deion Sanders was rumored to be looking at the Nebraska job, and Eric Strickland hopped on our air at the time and was like, I talked to Deion.
I remember this.
I talked to Deion, and I'm sitting next to Strickland. I'm like,
I remember that.
Didn't they have the same? They had the same.
Don't worry about
okay,
it.
all right, never mind.
Anyway,
that's what he said, didn't he?
Yeah,
he said that on the air.
He's like, yeah, I was texting Deion, and I'm like, oh no. And then I just started to get putting Twitter notifications the next morning, like, your name was mentioned in New York Times Sports, and I'm like,
That's
oh
tough.
no. Anyway, sorry, Happer.
What's the breaking news? Yeah.
Oh,
we pulled a McMaster and Schaefer, but a McMaster and Sainert.
We have a country station in our building.
Yes, we do.
Have you heard the news? Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
Country One.
Country One.
Oh, in Omaha. Not on 97.7 The Zone. In Omaha. Country One.
Yeah.
Country One here.
Yeah, you probably won't be able to get it out in Central.
No, you won't. But
they
here
have their
in
own
Omaha,
country stations out
Country
there.
One. It's going to be great. Very excited. There was we heard.
I turned on the station after I left yesterday, and I heard I heard the construction sounds, and I was like, God, what is going on? And they were fixing it. That's what was happening. They were fixing it.
They put construction sounds on while they were fixing it.
Correct.
Wow.
From like 11, like I turned you off, and I turned on 106.9, and it was construction noises, and I was like, all right. And then I knew that it was going to change at 3, and then they did the big countdown and the debut. I wonder what.
9.
I mean, history. I'm sure somebody knows upstairs. Maybe somebody's listening right now. Like, what was the first song?
I have no idea.
It better be Choosing Texas.
I came.
It better be Choosing Texas.
I came out of the bathroom and they were like, Matt, come over here. It's launching. And
Usually
I was like,
the radio watchers, like the Wikipedia radio watchers, are all over this stuff. I want to see it. Let's see if they got
By the way, I was looking at your screen while you were scrolling on Twitter. Did I see that you can own a piece of Ryan Field? Did I see that correctly?
I
might. Have you ever done that, either of you, where you like buy a piece of an old stadium, where you buy like
a piece of Ryan Field?
Yeah.
This is a clearly AI made graphic that Northwestern just put out, available at collectnu.com, as is, and bespoke upcycled products from the old stadium.
Okay. That's on Northwestern Athletics. Have you ever done that? Have you like bought anything?
collectnu.com.
Have you bought anything on like from an old stadium before?
No grass or court for me.
Have you, Nick?
Nope, I have no interest.
Okay.
No,
all right. Change it on Wikipedia.
I have no interest in the in like purchasing it. I think it's cool that they offer it. I just like, what am I going to do with it?
I don't know what I'm gonna
wall.
I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I might buy a piece of Ryan Field. I'm currently thinking about it. Let's see what the price is.
By the way, they did update it on Wikipedia already. August 13th, 2026 at 3 p.m. KOPW flipped to country, branded as Country One, 106.9.
Wow.
There
are people who
usually
do
they
that
tell
on
us like I said, the Wikipedia radio watchers are really like I was dead serious. That is really a thing. And but they did not put what the first song that was played was. I'll have to go back on the logs.
Yeah, please do.
Watch the Watcher.
Check it out. I better have been.
She's in Texas, I can tell. God,
what a great song.
It's been on number one for like 18 weeks.
You know,
It's been number one in my life for like probably a half a year now.
Well, it's 18 weeks because that's as long as it's
No,
been out.
I remember listening. I remember vividly. I listened to it probably 6 times when I was going to Vegas for the
Crown?
players. No, for the players era last year. So November.
It never gets old.
It really doesn't. That's why I listened to it 6 times.
It doesn't.
Like it never. It's one of those songs that never gets
He's
old.
just stepping around the room.
Like it's one time around. One time around, you can sing it.
A little pitchy.
Yeah,
I'm bad. All right, not Michael Jackson bad. I'm just bad, except for Bruno Mars. I can sing that. God, Bruno, what a singer! What a talented guy.
Is he out of debt yet in Vegas?
Yeah, yes, he is.
He's alive.
He
He's
is.
safe?
He's good. He made up for the $50 million he allegedly lost gambling. That
By doing concerts.
by very coincidentally performing in Vegas for
In
an
a residency.
insane amount. Yeah, for an insane amount of time though. He might have been it might have been the longest residency.
If you're Vegas, like
They've had.
what a perfect person to have in
Oh
Vegas
my
jail.
God, yeah.
I mean, you basically
Vegas
just
jail.
trap him into doing shows for free for months.
That's what I'm pretty sure they did that to Frankie Valli too.
Oh, I mean, Frankie Valli was doing,
Yeah.
he was doing lots of shit. I mean, like is he alive?
Do you remember we had he's still alive, and remember last year there was a thing where he was still performing and like 90 plus
Yeah,
years
he looks
old.
like animatronic.
And
I
he
wonder
looked-
if he's still
and he
alive
looked
right
terrible.
now. Yeah.
I believe he's still going.
Okay, Matt. It bothers me how you used your touch screen.
What do you mean?
Like, just use your mouse pad. It's right there.
No, I have. What do you mean? I can use both. I'm allowed to use both.
Go ahead.
He's 92 years old.
Damn.
He's married. He's been married to 4 women. Wow. He actually got married in 2023 at the age of 89. Wow.
Interesting.
Frankie Valli. Longest residency in Vegas of singers.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder what that would be.
Now you're the worst because now
Yeah,
I'm
you're so
conscious.
conscious
Yeah, now I'm
about it.
conscious about
Good.
the fact of how I use my. Here's my thing. My mouse pad doesn't really work. Like it's all crappy. So it's just easy if I switch between, this and doing it this way. Also, Mike Stibbs feels the same way that you feel.
I also feel like this, but I didn't want to.
Why is everybody so upset with the way that
I'm really bothered by like a lot of this.
It's just so much clutter.
What is
we had so much space?
What is clutter?
You have at least 12 tabs up. And when you open up your computer, you get a bunch of like Norton antivirus pop.
Oh, I've stopped doing that. I've cut those out. I figured out how to X that out. It was going for a while.
You gotta go check out Geek
it
Squad.
bugged the
infuriates me every day, but I don't say anything.
Well, they're
because
gone. They're no longer here.
I
There's
know.
no more Norton antivirus.
That's good.
McAfee security.
That's good.
I hate how smudgy your.
Just keep
screen
telling me.
is.
Yeah, keep telling me how much you hate me. How much do you hate everything I do? This is ridiculous.
What you do. I don't hate you. I just hate what you
Ridiculous.
do.
I hate what you do.
Look, did you not like the fact that I was watching Cardinals Raiders
Well, I
preseason
I can't
highlights?
see it. All I literally see on this side is fingerprints. Like seriously, look at where I'm. All I see is just where you touched. The
Yeah, that's
screen.
so bad. I can't. Look, you come here. Look, you come
Well,
here.
I'm sure just
you don't
straight
see
on.
it.
Hold
I
on,
don't know
let me.
how I don't know how you live that way.
Yeah, I
You know, a
mean,
lot of people
yeah.
have said that about me.
That's what the crossover I have discovered is all about. I was discussing this with somebody recently. It's like, yeah, here's how the crossover goes. Like Matt says something, and I'm like, how do you live? And then that's 20 minutes.
Yeah, and then Schaefer just throws in like other different hypotheticals and adds on to it. And if we have a really good crossover, Schaefer through discovery finds out another ridiculous thing, to which then you come on the other way. It's great.
Background.
No, it's I love how we're self-aware about it. I was actually around people who listen to the radio station, and 3 of them came up to me and told me separately. 3 different people who didn't know each other in separate occasions came up to me and told me how much they liked the morning crossover.
Oh. Grown men with tears in their eyes.
I mean, they were like, let me shake your hand.
Big,
You
strong
know?
What was their
men.
name?
Baymon said that to me.
You never met Bayamon in real life?
I met Baymon, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Great guy.
Nice.
His buddy Gordon said that to me.
I thought they didn't know each other.
Well, they were sitting next to each other. They had just met each other that day.
Okay.
Yeah. But then, and then another guy named, I believe his name was Ben was there. He was like, love the morning crossover. I was like, thanks for listening.
Where was this at?
This is at the Sydney because I-80 Club did like a little get together.
That's
So
right.
I was there for that. So that was
Nice.
fun. It was a ton of fun.
Shout out to
ton of fun.
Gordon.
Ben,
Yeah.
Baymon. Yeah. I met a guy named Shane who's in our chat a lot. But
Nice.
his name, I forget if his name's on the chat. He's Shane / Bruce. One of his names are actually I think his name is one of the other.
Oh yeah,
But he's a commenter, has a different name.
Nice.
And met him. He was great. They're awesome. He was a guy who made fun of me for my cooking. I was explaining how I cook things, and he was just roasting me for like a good couple days about me not knowing how to cook.
Mm-hmm. He's a professional chef.
Yeah, and he came up to me. He's like, "I'm that guy," and I'm like, "Great, awesome." But he was great to talk to.
Do you have a lot of dooms while you cook?
Beefy the cat.
Do I have a lot of what?
Dooms.
What's dooms?
Boom and doom.
No, I don't.
This is how we're keeping track of Anthony Calandria this year, by the way.
with the Costco guys.
We figure if he can
That's great.
If he can do 3 booms and like 1 doom a game,
yeah,
we'll be in good shape.
We all agreed that you cannot like backdate dooms.
Sure.
So you cannot say, well, I had no dooms against North Dakota, so it gives me 6 dooms against Ohio State.
Standard is the standard.
They got it. Yeah, absolutely. This is a great bit. This is phenomenal. Every time he scores a touchdown, I'm now going to think of double chunk chocolate cookie.
That's 1 boom. Wow, that's 1 boom.
It's 5 big booms.
I could see Anthony Calandria being a massive fan of the Costco guys. Like, chill, South Florida guy, just being like, look at these dudes. These are funny guys.
Do you think he knows about Big Justice?
I think he knows a lot about Big Justice. I wouldn't be shocked if Anthony Calandria or the Rizzler at some point in his career have a picture together.
What is more likely, the Rizzler knows who Anthony Calandria is?
Oh wow!
Or Anthony Calandria? Let's do it this way: Big Justice instead. Which one's more popular between the Rizzler and Big Justice?
Rizzler.
Okay,
so that was my problem with the Rizzler.
Okay.
It was Big Justice and Big Justice and then his dad, right? And then it was the Rizzler was his own thing, and then the Rizzler joined up with the Costco guys in this kind of like mega powers big 3. But it's like
the Costco guys.
It was a super team.
Yeah, intergalactic community.
I feel like the Rizzler was great on his own. Like he was good on his own.
Hogan Costco cinematic universe.
Hogan didn't need Hall and Diesel. Like Hogan was good with Hogan.
Have you seen those videos where Big Justice accidentally says the Rizzler's real name on video and he freaks out?
I think the internet is making me believe recently that the Rizzler and Big Justice are not on great terms.
Oh, well, it's probably because he said his real name on cam.
Yeah, I don't think the Rizzler is cool with the Costco guys anymore.
That's good for the Rizzler. I think he's way above the Costco guys. Long
Jake,
Island.
do you know anything about this?
Yeah, Jake.
Oh yeah, no, I know about it with the stream. I've seen that.
So, but do Rizzler and Costco guys, are they cool anymore?
I don't know like that deep about it. I haven't dove into a.
A simple Google search.
I've seen a massive increase of the popularity of Long Island / New York comedy, like on my Instagram, where it's like guys who are from Long Island and guys who are from like New York, and they're like cursing about the Yankees, and they're like making up like fake arguments you would have at a sandwich shop and stuff like that. And the Rizzler popped up in the algo of one of those Long Island comedy guys.
I'm sure.
Okay, so just a couple of days ago, Rizzler mentioned that he still refers to Big Justice as his best friend, but they have not hung out in person since last year.
That's interesting.
Because the Rizzler is in New York and Big Justice is in Florida.
That happens. I haven't seen my best friend in a couple months,
I don't know.
It's all good.
A year though.
I haven't seen my best friend in a year.
When you're rich,
that's a good point. I can't afford to take a flight to San Francisco and also pay to be in San Francisco for multiple days.
Matt says on YouTube, any middle-aged person tuning this in is going to have their brain melted.
That's what we're here for. We're here to have the older people, get up with the times. Know what's going on. You need to learn what your kids are watching. You need to learn about what your kids are consuming.
In your case, it's NFL preseason games. And
I'm a different.
In Nick's case, it's no movies ever and just Ocean's 11.
You think we need one more?
No,
we need one more.
No,
that's from Ocean's 11. I was quoting Oceans,
yes,
Nick.
Yes, but I thought you meant like we need another Oceans movie.
No. We do
No, I told Happer, I said if they're not robbing Terry Benedict's casinos, I don't want to watch it.
That's
a good
literally
point.
it's very specific.
Those are Terry Benedict casinos.
That literally only happens
Terry
once.
Benedict ran me out of business.
yeah. You knew that.
Yeah. Terry Benedict, he's gonna bury you into the ground and then he's gonna go to work on you.
It's a good movie.
It's
It is a
so
great
good.
movie.
There are other movies.
Saul's
Not any better.
He's which one's the amazing Yang? And then he runs. We got our runner. Oh God, it's such a good movie.
It's a great movie. I love Ocean's 11.
Tell me it's
There
not
are
better.
other movies that are good.
I feel like I need a bag of chips right now talking to Nick Sainer, just
Oh, jeez.
popping them in there.
It's time
Oh,
for me to.
jeez Louise.
No, that was good. That's Rusty when he's always eating the chips. He's always eating the chips.
It's a great movie.
It's a great movie. I don't watch movies.
What
Either.
are movies that are better than Ocean's 11 for
The
you?
Martian,
There's none.
Moneyball,
The Martian and Moneyball. All right.
Empire Strikes Back,
Michael would love that if you said The Martian.
Ford versus Ferrari.
Wow, you're really into like Matt Damon.
He's my favorite actor. Yeah, by
Hey,
far.
hey, you know what Matt
I love-
Damon's in?
Ocean's 11 is one of the. I believe it's his 8th best movie according to me because he doesn't have as big as a role as like he does in other movies. Good Will Hunting definitely better than. I would say that I put Ocean's 11 in the same area I put Megamind. I love Megamind.
My.
Megamind is awesome.
What's
You know,
Megamind?
It's
The
the
big blue
the
head.
big blue head guy, the evil guy.
Oh,
That
voices
evil movie.
in.
You
I don't
should
know
you
that.
should show your kid Megamind one day. She would love it. I'm quivering in my Navy SEAL leather boots.
Okay.
Show her Ocean's 11.
That's the crossover. Nick Sainer,
It's
thank you for
over?
filling. No, yeah, I mean, come on. I've been pushing you guys to 10, 25. I've been milking the cow that is Happer and Schaefer
Hey, tell me
when
your
it comes to the
favorite beer on
crossover.
3.
3, 2, 1. Michelob Ultra. Damn it!
Don't rip your thing out of your thing. All right.
We switched.
Hey, can we make that graphic, Jake? Don't rip your thing out of
Don't
your
rip
thing.
your thing out of your thing.
That's great piece
I
of
got
advice.
you.
I got to send you my Long Island comedy guys on my Instagram. You love them. They're funny.
I
They're
already
Long
have
Island.
Lots of cousins.
That's the crossover. Middays with Mag. Getting rolling here on the 16th on the Zone Radio Network after this break.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're gonna hurt some people.
Whose car are we gonna take?
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
That's an absolutely horse crap call. Make room for Daddy. But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Chicago is.
This is Middays with Matt on 1620 The Zone.
It is Matt live and rolling here on the 1620 The Zone Radio Network. Matt McMaster joined by Jake Janicek. Josh Hodson, his final day of vacation is today. Shout out to Josh. He will rejoin the show on Monday. Looking forward to that. But shout out to you, Jake. You've done such a phenomenal job this week as we wrap it up here on our final show of this is like, I remember talking to Connor Happer. What's up, Hap? I know he's in the car. Where I told Connor, I was like, man, I'm fired up for Big Ten Media Days. I'm fired up. Like, that's going to be like, hey, we're in football season. This thing is starting. Like, we're really going to it. And, you know, like, this is my first football season, have my own solo show. And Hap goes, he's like, no, brother. Like, there's a grind. Like, from Big Ten Media Days to, like, when we start solo show, you're grinding, you know, you're finding stuff. And he could not have been more right. It's been a grind because we're right there. We can almost touch the football season. Like, we're flirting with it. We can see it's literally 2 weeks away. If you're a big high school football fan, we're a week away from that here in Nebraska. Like, we are right there in terms of football season, but it's like you're in college football, like, you hear about training camp and you hear about the practices, but we can't go to them and actually see what's going on. With NFL training camp, you hear the rumors and this guy threw an interception and this guy looks good and this guy looks good. But number one, you don't really know what to believe. And secondly, you know, just because you're not throwing interceptions at training camp, like Jalen Hurts can now throw an interception for 158 pass attempts, according to the Eagles, which was just brag that he's won the Super Bowl, man, if you're trying to defend him. It's more so about, like, I remember the Patrick Mahomes before his MVP season, they were talking about how many interceptions he was throwing and, oh my God, he looks terrible. And then he ended up being the best player in the league. It's one of those things where it's like, you don't really know what to believe. And so we're sitting here at this time with football and we're so close to it, but we don't know, we don't have our teeth into it yet. And I feel like next week, right, when we get into next week, we will officially be like, all right, come on, we're a week away from actual games. High school football's here, more preseason. So it's been fun. It's been awesome to have football on our plate. But now I feel like I'm being teased more than ever, especially yesterday when I didn't watch a game live. Didn't watch a preseason game live yesterday. I was doing other things. But I went back and was watching some highlights on Twitter, watched some extended highlights on the Cardinals-Raiders game. Say this, Fernando Mendoza, he was fine. He threw for under 100 yards yesterday. Bad first series, 2 incompletions. He admitted to the media he was nervous. He was like, I was just so amped up to go out there and play. I'll say this, 2 names that you want to know for the Las Vegas Raiders, for you fantasy football players out there. I think Jalen Naylor, who is a very under the radar and one of the more rapid signings. Like, I think he went really quickly in NFL free agency, which I think communicates something to you, the fact that the Raiders wanted him. You know, last year, Clint Kubiak was the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, and he had a guy by the name of Rashid Shaheed, who actually got a massive contract extension from Seattle. And there is an expectation that Rashid Shaheed is going to have a pretty massive part of the Seattle offense this season. And so he had Rashid Shaheed at the end of the year, right? They traded for him. And, you know, they used him quite a bit. You know, he was a big special teams play, but also used him quite a bit toward the end of the year. And also, like, in the playoffs, had some pretty big catches for him. I think that Jalen Naylor, you know, is going to kind of fill that role as Kubiak's going to want to get the ball out quickly. This offensive line, especially on the outside, has some questions. I think you got a guy like Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza who can get the ball out pretty rapidly. I think Jalen Naylor, with his style of play, with his speed, with his shorter routes, with how quickly Kubiak's going to want to get this ball out of the hands of his quarterback because his offensive line isn't great, that'd be a name to watch. Maybe a late round flyer if you're in fantasy football. Last year, Naylor had 30 receptions for 450 yards. He'd be in the very, very back part of your draft, but he's going to be a pretty key piece of that Raiders offense if they're going to score a lot of points this year. Another name to watch out for, the tight end market in fantasy football kind of gets a little bit dry after you get past your 5th or 6th tight end, kind of when after Colston Loveland comes off the board, it's like, all right, what are our options here? Michael Mayer, and if Kenneth is in the chat, he's going to freak out me saying this name. Michael Mayer was a stud tight end at Notre Dame. He was drafted in the 2nd round the year before Brock Bowers. And Bowers comes in and definitely took away some of that shine from Mayer the last 2 seasons. But he was an All-American tight end at Notre Dame, probably, the best tight end in all of college football in his final season at ND. And he hasn't gotten a ton. Obviously, too, like, you have to adapt to the NFL. Like, it's not a just seamless transition the tight end position is from college to the NFL, because you're expected to do so much and know so much and learn so much. And Mayer's last season, though, at ND, 800 yards, 9 touchdowns, had 67 receptions. He led the country the year before with 71 receptions at the tight end position. In his Notre Dame career, he had 2,100 total yards in 36 games. Guy's a stud. They used him a lot yesterday in that first drive with Kirk Cousins and the Vegas Raiders. So those are 2 names for fantasy football. Just keep a lookout for them. Late round flyers. It could end up being that the Vegas Raiders have a terrible offense, and just like the Arizona Cardinals, you're a little bit hesitant about taking guys like that. Speaking of Arizona Cardinals, who you might be taking in fantasy football drafts, Jeremiah Love, we saw his first action yesterday. I believe he had a total of 14 carries. The couple of carries that I saw from him, and I don't use this comparison very lightly, but I was looking on Twitter. So I watched it on YouTube, and I saw some highlights of him on Twitter. And the Twitter prompt was, does this remind you of anybody? And I'm watching him play, and I'm thinking, like, that looks a lot like Adrian Peterson. Like, the way that he runs, the way that he moves, the power, but also the speed, and also just the willingness to put his foot into the ground and change direction. Had a couple spin moves yesterday. I was like, that looks like AP. He had 11 carries yesterday with 3 receptions, so 14 total touches. I was like, that's the comparison I have. Adrian Peterson. I go into the Twitter comments because I want to see who else are people comparing him to. Everyone said Adrian Peterson. So I was like, all right, maybe I'm a little vindicated here. He's got it, man. I don't know how to explain it other than he's got it. You just see just the combination of everything that you want. And you saw that at Notre Dame too, but it's like, you're, and also too, he's not carrying against the ones, right? He's carrying against the twos, but he just has that, just the entire package. He looks big, he looks strong, but he also is he's fierce. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds. Like, he's an animal, but he's also just fast and is willing and able, more than just able, to make defenders miss. So even if we're at the point where, the Arizona Cardinals, like, that offense is going to be bad and they're going to be the worst team in the NFL. Like, I think just his individual ability is going to make him a star in this league, regardless of what the pieces are around him, to the point where it's like, if he ends up having a big year this year, the Cardinals will be like, hey, the clock is ticking, because that's how these things work with running backs, right? You can't just trust that a guy like that is going to be around for a decade. That's just how the running back position works. And we've seen so many great running backs, especially early on, like, get hurt. Now, some of them get hurt and end up coming back, just like Saquon Barkley did, where, the end of his New York Giants career was kind of riddled with injury. But he ended up being the key piece into a Super Bowl winning team with the Philadelphia Eagles. We have a chat in here, as Jake, you kind of snickered at it. I see which one you're referring to. From Nobody, he goes, Colts are winning the Super Bowl. I will say this, obviously the first 8 weeks of Anthony Richard, or of Daniel Jones before he ended up getting hurt, they were awesome. Now, I do want to add, Daniel Jones was really good at the beginning, and even before he got hurt, things kind of started to tail off. But you cannot deny that Indianapolis Colts roster is very talented. They lost Michael Pittman, which is tough, but I think that Tyler Warren is still going to be incredible for them. Jonathan Taylor's interesting. There's kind of that rule of if you have 370 touches in a season, expect your production to go down. Now, there are some people who have defied that before in their career. Derrick Henry has done it his entire career. Josh Jacobs did it. I think it was either his first or second year in Green Bay. This is why Christian McCaffrey was the best player in fantasy football last year, but he's not going as high as Gibbs, or is not going as high as Bijan Robinson, or if you were to take him maybe even before Jackson Smith and Jigba, people would look at you sideways because he touched the ball a ton last year, and typically production with that goes down with running backs from year to year. Jonathan Taylor, who the Colts just a couple of weeks ago signed to a 2-year, $22 million extension, he had 369 touches. So he's not on the radar when it goes the rule of 370, because he didn't touch the ball 370 times, but he's basically there. He's basically at that point. And so there definitely is a little bit of worry with how much usage he got, in the entirety of the season. Will he be able to be the same player? They obviously trust that because they paid him. They gave him a $44 million extension. It'll be interesting too. His numbers. I was listening to a fantasy football podcast where they were comparing Taylor's numbers with Jones versus without Jones, and he was better with Jones, right? Because teams would stack the box more, knowing that the Colts going to have a throwing threat. Speaking of the Indianapolis Colts, I made a prediction yesterday. I made two predictions. The first prediction was that the Colts and Patriots were going to score more than 39 points, which didn't end up happening. But my other prediction was that I thought Anthony Richardson was going to play awesome in the preseason, and we were going to have all of this. Oh my God, could he be the guy, or could he finally reach his potential, or will a team go out there and trade for Anthony Richardson? Yesterday, he threw for 145 passing yards, rushed for 53 yards, and completed 78% of his passes with an 80.1 passer rating. It was a really, really good performance by him overall. So I was right. Matt was right. We're now going to have this thing where it's can Anthony Richardson, actually become the guy that they all thought he was? Granted, he was drafted number 4 overall pick a couple of seasons ago. I don't know. I always was super bothered. Do you remember this, Jake, where he tapped out?
Oh, yes.
He tapped out of the game, and he was like, I got to get off. I got to rest. That always bothered me. And it's more than just he also wasn't good. There was inefficiencies. He got hurt all the time, right? Because he had to run, because that was one of his best skills. Wasn't a great passer, didn't trust he could stay healthy. Then there was a lot of I remember McAfee, because he's so connected with the Colts building. They were always kind of hey, Anthony Richardson, he's got to figure it out for himself. And they brought in Daniel Jones last year not to be their starting quarterback. They brought in Daniel Jones last year because he was the perfect litmus test for the future of Anthony Richardson, where it's this, and especially where Jones was coming off of, right? He was coming off of basically rehabbing with the Minnesota Vikings after failing with the New York Giants. Jones was looked at as the perfect quarterback in regard to, okay, you should be able to kill this guy. You should be able to beat this guy. This guy shouldn't be difficult for you to go ahead and win the starting job over, right? He has not had a good career, and was basically shipped out by New York. And so they're all right, this is the guy that you need to beat. But Daniel Jones was also the perfect quarterback because this is a guy who had earned a big contract at some point in his career. And you look back, to his 2022 season, he threw for 3,200 yards, right? He had 15 touchdowns. He had 5 interceptions. He had a very high completion percentage. He was an efficient quarterback until eventually those 2 years after, he was just awful. But he was all right, Jones, if you can't beat him, then you shouldn't be here. but you should be able to beat him, but he might be able to grab you. And Jones had a great camp. He had an awesome training camp. He beats out Anthony Richardson. And then from that point on, I was like, all right, we're done here. And then, he did not, had a really good overall 2025 season. He had 13 games, 3,100 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, but then obviously got hurt. And we'll see. I mean, all reports indicate at this point that he should be pretty good to go come week 1. But that's kind of your preseason talk right there. That was a fun little tangent we went on talking about preseason and fantasy football. Always enjoy that. We will have a training camp update with a couple of teams today. I had Nick Grimm. I said, Nick, give me 3 random NFL teams. And so he gave me 3 random NFL teams. I will not tell you who those 3 random NFL teams are, but we will talk about those teams and what's going on specifically in their camp and around the season. We'll also throw in a PFF stat of the day at some point during today's show, talking about havoc plays for Nebraska football, their defensive line, how many hits, pressures, sacks, hurries are their defensive line. Did their defensive line and the new guys that they got from the D-line, did they get last year in comparison to some of the teams around the country? We had the Field of Dreams game yesterday, which did some spark a little bit of a debate about blackouts in the MLB, and how if you're a resident in Iowa, too often you get blacked out from watching many of the teams that are in and around your area that you might want to follow. So we'll touch quickly on that. Scott Docterman wrote something very interesting about that experience. We have some more fall camp intel. The Tunnel Talk for Husker Online and On3 dropped today. Some great bits and pieces of information of what's going on during fall camp for the Nebraska football team, as Steve Sipple, Sean Callahan, and Robin Washut kind of revealed some of the things that they know. We'll couple some of that into some of the things that I've heard as well when it comes to what's going on in fall camp for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Tomorrow will be a fully padded scrimmage for the football team. It is the first fully padded scrimmage that they will have this fall camp, and so that will be where we start sorting the men amongst the boys to see what this actual depth chart and what starting lineups will look like and what key pieces and rotations will look like for this Nebraska football team. We'll also talk about an interesting quote that came from Sipple in the Tunnel Talk. And then we're going to relay that to, there was a national media pundit who had an opinion and a tweet about Nebraska football and Matt Rule specifically and his hiring process and some of the things that have gone right and gone wrong with Rule and hiring at Nebraska. So I kind of want to combine the two, where it's all right, here's this quote from inside information that we're hearing about the Nebraska football team. Let's couple that with what some of the opinions are on Nebraska football from a national perspective. And then we'll kind of marry the two and not necessarily do a history lesson, but also I just want to kind of clarify some things when it comes to Matt Rule and his history of hiring. I don't, there are guys who left Nebraska or no longer coaching for Nebraska that were originally hired for Matt Rule in his first staff, but I wouldn't necessarily categorize all of the guys who were hired in his first go around for the football team as a bad hire. I'll explain to you why, because I think that what Matt Rule, and this is kind of my opinion outside looking in, with also some things that about the program and their evolution with Matt Rule over the last couple of seasons. The way that he's hiring now is different than when he hired when he first got here. And there's a specific reason for that. There's a reason why some of the guys and some of the coaches that he brings in today and that he brings in during this offseason are very different from why he first got here. To me, there was an intention there in terms of why he did certain things. And we use a phrase, right? Where he hired his friends, right? And that's kind of the low-hanging fruit phrase. I don't agree with that phrase at all, because I think there's a deeper meaning to him bringing in people that he knew and people that he was familiar and comfortable with. But his last couple of hires here, heading into year 4 at Nebraska aren't hires of people that he's necessarily familiar with, or he necessarily knows, or he necessarily had a previous relationship with. He's brought in a lot of guys that he's gotten to know, that he's, either made a relationship with Jamar Mosey, right? And, when he got here to Nebraska, made a relationship with Jamar, he brought Jamar in. He didn't know Damon Benning, right, before he got to Nebraska, right? He met Damon when he got to Nebraska, and they created that relationship, and that Damon now is a part of the staff, which we got some information on a little bit more on Damon's role, which I do think is pretty important. We'll talk about later in the show. But same thing with Orich, and same thing with Corey Brown, and same thing with Rory Manning, and same thing with Jeep Wade. Like, he didn't have these binding, intense, I've coached with you for 10, 15 years, or, you were my former player, or, we have this long history. Let me bring you in to come and coach here because I want to give you a job. No, he hasn't done that a lot over the last couple of off seasons because it's different now. He's looking at it differently because he needs something different now than what he needed then. And then is when he first got here to Nebraska. So we'll discuss about that because it was an interesting tweet from Bud Elliott, and then a very interesting piece of information from the Tunnel Talk that we will get to. Also talk about Danny Busboom Kelly. Watched her press conference yesterday at Volleyball Media Day, along with a couple of other different clips we saw from the players and the seniors and the 16 active players on Nebraska volleyball's roster. Very interesting quotes. It was to see all the seniors talk about and get asked about the new 5-for-5 rule and what their future might look like and all that type of stuff was very interesting. And at least the vibe that I got from it, and I think it's the vibe that most people got from it, is that when it comes to Bergen and Laney and Harper and Andy, like, they know they all have another year, but they don't know for sure if that means they're all going to be back in Nebraska, which makes, this year even more emotional, even more important, and even more of an opportunity to build a long-lasting legacy. A legacy, frankly, they've already built. I think that senior class has already built a legacy, regardless of whether or not they win a national championship. But how much greater does that legacy look with a national championship? Looks pretty great with it, right? And so that's their goal. And loved the comment from Bergen where they go, "Hey, you're the number 1 ranked team in the country." And she goes, "Yeah, I wish we weren't. Really wish we weren't. We don't really care. We know that it's not necessarily, it's not about being ranked in the preseason. It's about how do you finish in the playoffs." And that's the one thing that this volleyball team has done everything, right? They've undefeated Big Ten regular season, undefeated regular season overall, made a national championship in their freshman year. They've played in front of 93,000 people in a football stadium. They're now going to go and play at AT&T Stadium, in the Spikes Under the Lights event. They're going to play in Vegas against the number 2 team in the country in Texas, where DBK is like, "Look, I'm a Big 10 volleyball, or Big 12. I'm a Big 12 volleyball player. I love our rivalry with Texas. I love that we can renew it." They're going to go and play volleyball at a baseball field. They're going to play volleyball at Wrigley Field. Like, this volleyball team has done almost everything that you could imagine a collegiate volleyball team could do, except for win a national championship, which, out of all of the things that they've accomplished, you might think that they, based on what their success was in year 1, if you told somebody heading into year 4, right? Seriously, this is an interesting question to be had about the volleyball team. If you told somebody after they lost to Texas in the national championship game that they would go 2 seasons without making the national championship game,
you wouldn't believe it.
You wouldn't believe it. You'd be like, "What? They hadn't won one yet? Really?" Like, that's the extent of that. But, to me, their legacy has already been created through their first 3 years. It's just, how do you finish that legacy? And it's a big question, and they have a massive opportunity to put that final stamp on that senior class. Is, hey, we are national champions. Because Nebraska volleyball has been the most popular, most influential, most important volleyball team in collegiate volleyball for a good portion of time at this point. And the skyrocketing of popularity in volleyball over the last couple of years has a lot to do with Nebraska volleyball. Yet they haven't won a national championship in nearly a decade, which is quite surprising. Quite surprising. They've been to the final dance plenty of times, but haven't been able to finish it. So we'll talk more specifically, though, about how Danny Busboom Kelly handled media days, what she talked about, what things were important to her, some of the comments that she had about her team, about her senior class, about this crazy schedule that they're going to embark on in about a little bit over a week, when they're going to go to Dallas, then they're going to go to Vegas, then they're going to go to South Dakota, then they're going to go to Chicago and play at the Wintrust Arena, then Wrigley Field, and they're going to play a bunch of pretty good teams on the way to doing that. Now, granted, the exhibition is in Dallas, so it's not necessarily a regular season game, but when they go to Vegas, that will be a regular season game, and a great way to give themselves a very challenging test to begin the year for their V-ball season. So we'll talk about that. Another interesting Paul Skeens article was written today. We might touch that. My Chicago Bulls got screwed in terms of the schedule. I know no one cares, but they're playing 15 back-to-backs this season. It's the second most in the NBA. The NBA schedule did get released yesterday. Joey Warcola flipped his crap about it. Not actually. But it is kind of funny to me, like, randomly on a Thursday, the NBA is like, all right, here you go. Like, here are all the national games.
Very
and
random.
Here are like the dates you need to circle and this and that. And it's not necessarily like about, and so much more about the randomness as much as it is me comparing them to the NFL, where the NFL has a full network show and we're counting down the days to the network show. And it's a whole, we already know who the teams, like what teams you're going to be playing, right? Who your favorite team is already going to be playing. We already know that, but now it's like we have a full show decked out for the order. Where in the NBA, it's just like, all right, press release, here you go, have at it. We're like, oh, okay, great. My Eastern Conference teams plays a lot of Eastern Conference teams. Pretty sick. So we'll hit a break here. We got a great show ahead of you today. Brian Christopherson will join us of Huskers 24/7. BC will join us at 11:20. Should be a fun conversation, all to do with Husker fall camp. At 1 o'clock, we will be joined by Austin Jacobson of Hurrdat Sports. AJ, his season's coming up, man. He's been going to a bunch of different high schools across the state and across the metro, visiting in, seeing what some football teams are looking like before their season, which I was looking on the NSAA website, officially starts next Friday, August 21st. That's when you have your first batch of games, and then it gets really, really ramped up. I think everybody's playing. I'm assuming everybody's playing on August 28th because I looked at all the games, and it was about 7 scrolls down of all the games that are being played on Friday. So should be fun, should be a good show. This Friday edition of Middays with Matt. Coming up next, though, let's talk about Matt Rhule, some of the hires that he's made throughout his years as the coach of Nebraska football here on the 1620 The Zone Radio Network. Yesterday was a pretty good day on Twitter. I wouldn't go as far as to say as it was as great of a day on Twitter as like the Vrabel Rossini stuff. But it was still a pretty damn good day, especially the Lane Kiffin stuff. That was a great day on Twitter as well. But it was a fun day on Twitter because of Jaden Daniels. As we talked about it yesterday. So like this Jaden Daniels story started coming to light around Wednesday. Say Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night is kind of when it started to get put out there that Jaden Daniels sent a cease and desist letter to the LSU Tigers, essentially telling them, hey, LSU can no longer use my name, image, and likeness. And that he wanted them to return their copy of his Heisman Trophy to him, which LSU has no intention of doing because, you know, it's you have to celebrate a player winning the best player in all of college football. Like you have to celebrate that accomplishment, right? As a team, as a program, it's a phenomenal recruiting tool as well for LSU to go, look at our guys, our best players. They win the Heisman Trophy, especially when you're trying to get quarterbacks to commit to you. So, LSU told him absolutely not. But the point being that Jaden Daniels is very pissed off at LSU because they are allowing DJ Pickett, a cornerback for the Tigers, to wear Daniels' number 5. Now, Daniels' number is not retired from LSU. And neither is Joe Burrows, who also won a Heisman Trophy with the LSU Tigers. And nobody, since Joe Burrow has won a Heisman Trophy and addedly won a national championship, something that Jaden Daniels did not do, no one's worn the number 9. Pickett, who is a 5-star cornerback coming out of high school, put in his contract that he wanted to wear the number 5. Literally put in his NIL contract, I want to wear number 5. Brian Kelly, who was the coach for Jaden Daniels when he won that Heisman, told Pickett, I don't care what's in your contract, unless you get Jaden Daniels' blessing to wear that number, you can't wear that number. And so he wore number 3 last year. Kelly gets fired. Lane Kiffin gets brought in. Pickett brings up, hey, I'm your starting corner, and according to Brett Cianci on my Pick 6 previews, I'm supposed to be, one of the top corners in the SEC, right? I'm supposed to be one of the top guys. Brett Cianci, I had him on his 3rd-team All-SEC for cornerbacks. Kiffin goes, all right, you're one of my dudes, you're one of my guys. I obviously don't want you to leave, because new administration, I don't want you to leave us. You're an important player. Of course you can have number 5. You can have number 5, no problem. Well, Daniels flipped out about it, which is just such a baby thing. It's such a baby petty, like your number's not retired. Yes, you want a Heisman. There's a lot of players on a football team, man. There's so many numbers could go around. Like it's unless your number is specifically retired, it's a very tough and unrealistic expectation for you to not think that nobody's ever going to wear your number. And if you want to say, well, they're treating me different than Joe Burrow. Yeah, they are. Joe Burrow won a national championship. Joe Burrow led one of the greatest college football teams we have ever seen in the history of the sport. It is different. He is on the hierarchy of importance of LSU football players. He is higher because he won a natty. You did not. That's just how it works. If you want to say, oh, you're treating me different. Yeah, we are. We look at Joe Burrow differently than you do. That's just how it works. Welcome to life, brother. So they're mad. Jaden Daniels is mad that a player is going to wear his number, even though it's not retired. And the memes, dude, the jokes, the, hey, they're some guy tweeted out, it was one of those troll accounts on Twitter. They're like, they're giving high 4s out at Washington Commanders training camp now because they don't want to disrespect Jaden Daniels because number 5 is his number. I saw one that, the 5-second rule. The 5, you drop something on the ground, you got 5 seconds to pick it up before the bacteria gets there, which has got to be a myth, by the way. I think Mythbusters did do something on that. But now apparently one joke was like, oh, they're using the 6-second rule now at the Washington Commanders training camp because number 5 is Jaden Daniels. And I thought, I was like, all right, troll accounts, whatever, this is funny. Until StubHub, yeah, you heard that right. StubHub got in on the action. The place where you buy all of your tickets from, where you would get pissed because they would tell you that a ticket was $37, and then they would add like $22 worth of fees, which apparently that doesn't exist anymore. I don't use StubHub. Haven't used it in forever, but apparently they don't do that. So kudos to them, I guess. They tweeted out, effective immediately, we will no longer offer ticket groupings in 5s. Out of respect for Jaden Daniels, we are only doing 4 or 6+ tickets. Thank you for your understanding. That's how you know you're getting clowned. That's how you know you're probably in the wrong. When StubHub is coming up over the top to make fun of you. Which, by the way, then I found out that StubHub is actually they're in a lawsuit right now because apparently people bought tickets for FIFA World Cup games and they never gave them to them. So a lot of people were upset at StubHub for taking a shot at Jaden Daniels because they were like, what are you doing? Are you kidding me? You of all people to make fun of somebody. StubHub should not be doing that. But yeah, the Jaden Daniels saga, very strange, very petty, very stupid, very dumb. Tough to see Jaden Daniels by like a lot because his mother is very much involved in his life. And it's always been, a joke of like, he's a mama's boy and whatnot. And now it's really like become like people are really making fun of him because of that, especially because of this number 5 nonsense with LSU. It is funny to see how like some of these young quarterbacks, how their image and their likeness and how people view them, like, goes up and goes down as their entirety of their career as quarterbacks, where Daniels, after his first season in Washington, leads them to a NFC championship game. He's the belle of the ball. He's awesome. He's incredible. Oh my God. What a terrible look at the Bears making another mistake. They should have taken Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams the entire time. To fast forward, less than 2 years later, Jaden Daniels is being clowned on by Twitter, for an entire day. And now we are even questioning, can he stay healthy and will he be the same player again this season? Where Caleb Williams has skyrocketed in terms of popularity through his great play last season, leading the Bears to a playoff win and then being the Madden NFL cover. And now apparently he looks awesome at training camp. So, it's been some ebbs and flows of being the NFL quarterback. Talking about ebbs and flows, that happens when you're the head coach of Nebraska football. We feel one way about you one day, and a couple weeks later, a couple results later, a couple games later, a couple comments later, a couple interviews later, we feel different about you another day. And last year, Nebraska was the media darling. It felt like they were the national media darling in regards to a lot of national college football pundits picking them to be, to take the year 3 Matt Rule jump, to take the next step to potentially contending for a spot in the college football playoff. Plenty of national pundits saying, hey, this is the year that they go ahead and they beat a ranked team and they take the next step. And Matt Rule, Temple and Baylor, this is where the jump is. And a lot of people were very bullish, confident, but a lot of words behind what they believed in terms of Nebraska football, for Nebraska football to only win 7 regular season games and not accomplish those things, such as being in the college football playoff conversation, such as beating a ranked team, such as taking that year 3 Matt Rule jump. And now here we are in an offseason, obviously quiet from a local perspective, but also an offseason that has been very kind of under the radar and quiet from a national perspective. The only person that you really see having pretty strong comments on Nebraska football from a national college football perspective is Will Compton, who obviously played here all those years ago, a very notable and very supportive alumni of Nebraska football, and his friend Josh Pate, who, because Pate and Compton spent a lot of time together, which they will be spending plenty of time together on ESPN, as it was announced that Pate and Compton, along with his partner Taylor Lewan, will have, I believe they're calling it Bussin' something.
Yeah, Bussin' and Pate on campus.
Bussin' and Pate on campus. It'll be a weekly college football show, which will air from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern time on a campus every Friday. So kind of a bit of I'm assuming this is a primer into what game day will be. I will guess that wherever game day is going to be, these guys will end up being there. I just saw that come across my timeline. But like, those are the only 2 guys that you've kind of seen with fairly strong Nebraska football opinions. And even Pate has been way, way more tempered down, way more calm about Nebraska this season as compared to what he was last season. And so it's been interesting to see them go under the radar. It's been interesting to see just a lot of the things that I read nationally about this team is Anthony Calandria. If he ends up booing, this could be an interesting year for Nebraska. If he ends up busking, Matt Rule might be on the hot seat. That's kind of what I've seen on the national sites. The Athletic wrote an article this morning, the most impactful player for every Power 5 team this season in college football. Calandria was obviously the pick for Nebraska. The title was the most intriguing newcomer for all 68 Power 4 college football teams. They picked Calandria. They wrote the same old that we've been hearing. But there hasn't been as many people very bullish on Matt Rule and this thing working out as it was last year. Okay, that's kind of been obvious, right? A lot of people put their belief behind Matt Rule saying, hey, he's going to bring Nebraska back. And that did not happen last season. And then by help of our friend, Mr. Josh Peterson, I saw a very interesting tweet and a very kind of educated takeaway from Bud Elliott, who, college football national pundit, has a lot of opinions on varying franchises. He covers college football for CBS. He's a part of the Cover 3 podcast. Elliott wrote this. So he was asked by a Twitter user, what's the first thing you think of when you think of Nebraska this season? Elliott writes this: surviving. I think he's talking about Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule did a poor job of hiring people in his first couple of years at Nebraska. I like the staff he has in place now, both coaching and in the front office, but they squandered an easy schedule the last 2 years. Now, they're going to have to deal with a much tougher schedule in the next two before they get to the next phase, which ideally involves Taylor balling out at Nebraska. So, Elliott, I want to focus in on the first two sentences. I think Matt did a poor job of hiring people in his first couple years at Nebraska. And then the second sentence was, I like the staff he has in place now, both coaching and in the front office, but they squandered an easy schedule the last 2 seasons. And let's work this back to front. His comment about they squandered an easy schedule the last 2 years. I would say they definitely squandered an easy schedule last season. Like that was they had a phenomenal opportunity last season with the hand they were dealt. And it wasn't just only like, hey, you didn't play Indiana, you didn't play Ohio State, and you didn't play Oregon. You didn't play any of the big three. It wasn't just that. You got Penn State on an interim coach as well. The Penn State you thought you were going to have in the preseason, which was national championship contender Penn State, did not end up being the Penn State you thought they would. And you still got your asses whooped in that game. You still did. Right? You still got whooped by Iowa, still got whooped by Utah. Like, you had a phenomenal opportunity in year 3 with a very favorable schedule to what do we always say, Jake? M equals ebb. Money equals momentum. Momentum equals money. Matt Rule in this football program last year, just strictly based off of the cards they were dealt and whom they had to beat to build momentum, were given a golden opportunity, and they failed. They failed so much to the point that they won 7 games for the first time in a decade, and people are like, yeah, whatever. Your best win was Northwestern or Cincinnati.
Yep.
Every other game that you could have beaten a notable or ranked opponent or somebody that has some sort of personal meaning to Nebraska fans, you lost. You lost those games. So Elliott is spot on in regard to they squandered an easy schedule. I agree with Bud when he goes, I like the staff he has in place now, both coaching and in the front office. I think, say what you want about Rule. He's been ahead on some things. And I think bringing in Pat Stewart as a GM, he was ahead on that. Having the department they have with remote scouts and evaluation and guys looking at the portal and, how they handle, like, they have a plan with this is who we pay. This is why we pay them. This is the position we go after. We value this position more than this position. Like they actually have a plan. They've done when Bud also talks about coaching / front office. It's like you cannot deny the job that they've done from a recruiting standpoint. Addison Williams has been nails recruiting down in Florida. Jeep Wade, one of Rule's newest hires, right? He's been great recruiting in Georgia. EJ Barthel, what an evolution that guy has taken from when he first got here as a coach to now where he is in terms of developing Emma Johnson. And then on top of that, getting Nebraska into Chicago and getting some of their best prospects Nebraska has had in multiple recruiting cycles. Claude Puma, the offensive tackle that everybody's kind of raving about in terms of, wow, he's taken some really massive steps. He was a Mount Carmel guy from Chicago. That's because Barthel went in there and got that done. You look at Trey Taylor, that had a lot to do with EJ, right? And him making those relationships. So like they have the chops in terms of recruiting. They have the chops in terms of they have a system when it comes to acquiring players. And I think they have a lot of merit when it comes to guys who are actually coaching. Here's the most interesting part, though, about Bud Skaman. I think Matt did a poor job of hiring people in his first couple years at Nebraska. And let's add the first part of the second sentence. I like the staff he has in place now. And I think and obviously, like when you go down the line from that original staff that Matt Rule hired, right? Evan Cooper resigned. Bob Wager resigned. Joey McGuire left. Terrence Knighton left. Tony White left. Donovan Raiola was eventually fired, right? Like, that doesn't look good on the surface level, right? That a lot of your original guys that you brought in are now gone. But I think what needs to be understood is that how Rule was hiring in year one is very different to how he hired heading into year 4. It's two different mindsets that he has. His first mindset was, okay, I got to make this my program. I had to clean up some of the mess that was laid before me. This team hasn't made a bowl game in 6 years. There are obviously some not just external, but internal problems as well. I have to bring in people who not only that I trust, but I need to bring in people who know my system, know how I work, who know when practices. They know how I want to practice. They know when I want to practice. They know the culture I want to set. They know how I want to set that culture. That's what Rule needed in year one. He didn't need all of these different people who, maybe there were definitely a lot more people he could have hired who had college coaching experience, who had their own rooms before as a college assistant, who had coached in the Big Ten, who had more merit than the guys that they brought in. Because a lot of the guys that they brought in had been like assistant coaches, with the Carolina Panthers. They didn't bring in a ton of guys who have had their own room before in a college setting. He could have done that. But if he did that, he would have had to relay, hey, this is how we do things here. And this is how the culture is. And that would have been a pretty big divide, right? Because you got to communicate to those people how you do things. And then those people have to communicate to the players. It's just easier if we just all branch these things together and you bring in people who know you, know your system, know your culture, know your tendencies, know what you want to communicate with the players. And so, from a merit and effective, like on the field effectiveness perspective, that first staff was not very good. Wasn't great. It wasn't the best it could have been. But from a, hey, we got to get the foundation down. We got to get our 10 toes into this ground. We have to establish this as our program. That's what he needed. And then now that he's established it, now that he has established this is the culture, this is the program, this is how we do things. And those things are established not because of the coaches, they're established because of the players. Because Cam Lenhart knows what Coach Rule wants. RVP knows what Coach Rule wants. Jeremiah Charles knows what Coach Rule wants, right? Even the guys who haven't been there the entire time, right? Caleb Benning knows what Coach Rule wants. Donovan Jones now knows what Coach Rule wants, which is why Coach Rule talks about T-Rob and Nash Helpmaker so glowingly, because they help set that foundation and they help start that trickle effect. And so when Bud says, well, he did a terrible job of hiring then, but he does a better job of hiring now. Well, my counter to that is, and I don't necessarily disagree, you cannot deny that Evan Cooper resigning, Bob Wager resigning, and Joe McGuire leaving, T. Knight leaving, T. White leaving, Donnie being fired, like all of that stuff, right? That happened, that occurred. You can't deny that, hey, yeah, that's objectively a swing and a miss. But what those guys did in establishing the culture then for Matt Rule has allowed him to hire these better coaches, these more merited coaches now. And Matt Rule now knows, okay, regardless of who's got the room, we know what the culture is here. We know what the standard is here. We know what we need to do here. And, it's one of those things where it's like, I look at, and there was a quote from Tunnel Talk, the On3 article. It was written that somebody had, I forget, it was one of Sean's quotes or one of let me see. I want to make sure I get this right. So this was from Callahan. Sean wrote that another person I spoke with said the biggest thing he sees with the defensive staff changes is the level of coaching going on with the defensive line. He said, quote, they are actually getting coached now. The combination of Corey Brown, Roy Manning, and Dave Tollefson has been very good. And so, like, when I look at Matt Rule's hires in the past, there aren't as many as you would think that I would classify as that was a bad hire. Because to me, there were just some hires he made because they needed to establish the culture. They needed to get guys in who could communicate to everybody. This is how we do things. Now, John Butler did not fit what they were trying to do. That was not a good hire. Right. And I know, there were some other things that came into, hey, can you come on quickly and all that type of stuff. But Terry Braden was not a good hire. That was not a good hire. That's not the hire they needed to make. There are other hires that they've made that people would say, oh, that's terrible. And I would say, well, they needed a dude in there who could say, hey, this is how Coach Rule do things and does things and communicate that to people. And I don't think it's, when you know that context and you look at it that way, I don't think it's as surprising to think that now that they have the culture set and people know what the standard is, that they're able to be more aggressive and hire better coaches and hire coaches without worrying, oh, are they going to kind of mold into what we're trying to do here? And so I think that's an important piece of context. I do think, though, I was really impressed with Bud Elliott's overall opinion, though, because I think it was very well mannered. And you kind of have to be a little bit more informed than what the national headlines read to think that way. So I think it was a good take. But I do think that first staff, right? That first staff, it was more about just getting the best coaches in. It was just laying the foundation. They've now laid the foundation, and now they can bring in much better coaches who then could develop guys better, could get them better, and then you could have more of that consistency and continuity you would like to see from a Nebraska coaching staff. We'll talk about more of these things and some other things going on in fall camp. Coming up next, Brian Christopherson of Huskers 24/7s joins us here on Middays with Matt. We bring in one of our favorites from Huskers 24/7. Brian Christopherson joins us here on Middays with Matt as we are just one day away from the first full padded fall scrimmage for Husker football. Mr. BC, how are you?
I'm great, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing nice and well. How do you feel about Kyler Murray being your quarterback of the future for the Minnesota Vikings?
I'm not gonna get cocky about that, but I don't feel terrible. I'm a believer in KOC as a coach who can do something with a quarterback who has at least a little bit of material, and so I'll put some hopes into that. But I'm not gonna puff out my chest and start talking smack to you right now. No way.
The indirect shots at JJ McCarthy there were absolutely incredible. I do think though your team has the potential to be very, very good. Very if they can get average quarterback play. That defense last season they were top. They were either second or third in EPA last season. I really like that Caleb Banks guy that he got out of Florida if he can stay healthy. And I think Dallas Turner, he's just going to take a bigger role with Grenard now out. It's just who replaces Harrison Smith is remaining to be seen. But average quarterback play could get you to 10 or 11 wins next season, which should be very interesting for the Minnesota Vikings. Let's talk about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So Rule speaks tomorrow after the scrimmage, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Today it's Dana Holgerson in about an hour and a half or so, and a few players, and then Rule tomorrow. We'll see how much they want to say about this scrimmage. I think it's going to be kind of behind closed doors, but it's a big day for some guys because there's a lot of tight competition.
There is. I mean, one name that I've heard a lot of is Victor Evans. We went into this fall camp and a little bit out of the spring talking a lot about the 5-star prospect Danny Odom and Jeremiah Charles. All right, hey, these are two guys that will be battling for the CB2 position, but it seems like Evans has really emerged as a guy, a transfer from FIU. What do you know about him, and what are some of the things that you've heard about him?
Well, he's played a lot of snaps at FIU, so that helps. Obviously, the speed component was brought up last week, where I think Rule said he even ran like a 4.31, which is a ridiculous time.
Yeah.
So he has that. I think he's shown good physicality from what I've heard. He's a guy who came up with Vincent Shavers. They were friends in high school, played together, and it was actually Shavers who kind of put the word out to Rule, take a look at this guy. I think he'll listen. He'll sort of be that type of mentality you want in the program. And they brought him in, looked at his tape, liked him, and it seems like it has taken off since there. And he's right in the mix, like you say, with Jeremiah Charles. It feels like it's kind of a two-way competition right now. Who knows? If Danny Odom or someone can make a charge, but at least going into September 5th, you kind of would at this point presume it's going to be one of those two guys opposite Andrew Marshall.
I feel like when it comes to the running back, I've heard and I've read so many different names. I feel like at this point I've been told that one of Nelson, Rule, or Mosey all are winning the job and all look the best and are all primed to be running back one or get a bulk of the carries towards the end of the year. My question to you is, BC, are we kind of at the point though that it's like they're all going to be used at some point, and so maybe the whole idea of RB competition during fall camp might be a little bit overblown?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think sort of to build off that point that with the way it is, you're going to have to get into the games and sort of see who can really do it in those settings. You maybe have an idea. Mackay got to play in the bowl game and did some good stuff. I think they have a lot of confidence in him. But Jamal Rule is going to have something to say about it. There's no question. He's a good-looking, kid for a first-year freshman, just with his size and his mentality is exactly what you want. And I think Mosey too has certain elements to his game that maybe the others don't. I think he could be the most dangerous guy in space, especially in the pass catching game. The biggest thing is probably going to be, as much as anything, maybe two things. When you get to these scrimmages, it's not just about who can hit home runs, but who can take the 2 or 3 yard play and make it 5 or 6 yards. That's such a big deal in this league. you'll need to see some of that in the scrimmages, and then obviously into the season, and frankly into the first couple of games of Big Ten play. When you go out to East Lansing and play Maryland, who's going to show up there and sort of be like, okay, I'm ready for this role and this spotlight? So I think the way you frame that question is fair, because I do think we'll have a depth chart the first week, of course, but I think it'll be very fluid with the guys having a chance to sort of bump each other out of the chair as the games pick up.
Let's go to the tight end room. I find it very interesting, just because, if this team is going to run the ball as much as they think, and, or at least as much as they communicate, I think you can assume that they're going to have some multiple tight end sets. And, I think obviously they wanted to be very versatile last season with Janier and Bonner, and they weren't able to do that. And a lot is said about Luke Lindenmeyer. But who do you think that second tight end role could end up being? Is this the year that Carter Nelson emerges, or is there a guy like Eric Ingerson, who we've kind of heard a little bit about? Does he end up grabbing that TE2 role?
Yeah, that's a good question. It could fluctuate based off sort of who you're playing against and what you're trying to do, and with certain packages. Like, I think Ingerson is definitely going to have a role, and kudos to him. I mean, he's changed his body this offseason specifically to be an inline blocking tight end. He was 245 pounds last year. Now he's 265, 270. Imposing looking guy. In-state kid, two in-state kids I think are kind of coming for roles, one on each side of the ball. Ingerson on offense, Tyson Terry on defense. But Ingerson definitely, I feel like, is a great option for them, especially as you get into Big Ten play. If you want to go to your run-heavy set. And then, maybe if in certain areas you turn to like Carter Nelson and obviously what he can do as a receiving weapon. Still a lot to play out there, but it's good that you bring up Ingerson or ask about sort of him in that conversation, because he is in it, and he's a guy that I think probably was off people's radar until recently.
Yeah, and I think it was super interesting too with Dana's comment of I was disappointed with the tight ends, in what he said, June and July, right? And it's just interesting to see. That's going to be, I think at this point, with the fact that you don't have that like Malachi Toney or that Jeremiah Smith or that Ahmad Hardy, that superstar player, all hands on deck, right? You're going to need everybody to step up and everybody to play role, and personnel groupings and play calling, obviously a big deal in that. So it'll be interesting to see maybe some of what are those more complex packages look like for the offense as we get into the season. What is your take on Rule's tone now versus Rule's tone maybe a couple years ago when he first got onto campus? How have you seen that change? Because you've been to all those press conferences.
I think there's an understanding that, right now, it's about the doing, not the saying. I appreciate, by the way, the words, like we use them. we like them for our content, for writing stories and all that stuff. But I think he also realizes, and this probably happens everywhere when you get to like year 3 or 4, some of whatever you've said has sort of been heard at this point. People are either going to take it and kind of believe in it, or there's like, yeah, just show it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's an understanding that that's sort of how things are being received. And I think you've seen that sort of in the way they've attacked the whole off season. They've made guys available. I don't want to get it wrong. Like, if there's been, press conferences and all that stuff like usual, but I do think it's been a little more understated probably than it has in past years. And that's fine. I think they adopted, like in January or February, like, this is put your head down and let's just go to work sort of off season. And there's other factors. We've talked about it before at play here. It's not just that. I mean, they started spring earlier. March Madness was still going on. All that stuff kind of contributed to it. So you got to be a little careful in acting like it's this dramatic flip. But I do think he's probably been a little bit less out there or talked or did quite as many interviews as he has in the past.
Sure. Is there one specific group that you want to ask about after the scrimmage tomorrow to him?
There's so many good battles. Like the running backs are a good place to start, like in a scrimmage like that, because it's so close. You want to see like, okay, who kind of showed out, in that. I think on the defensive line, it's very competitive at the edge spots. Obviously you've got some veterans in Cam Lenhart and Anthony Jones, but Winery and Petchak and those guys are going to have something to say. And I'm sort of intrigued what clues may come out of the next couple weeks about who's sort of where there. So they've got a lot of fluid spots on the depth chart, maybe more so on the defensive side. I think the linebacker position is going to be really interesting. I wrote a thing the other day. I mean, if you're saying like, okay, what's one thing you'll go to the fridge and reach for the Kool-Aid with? I really like the look of their linebackers on the surface. Like I love that, Owen Chambliss is getting a lot of talk about him, but it feels different even than some off seasons when they pump up a guy. It's like we're about 15 sources deep now in guys that are like, yeah, he's just like a football fanatic and a football brain that really helps us out. And so
we are so many sources deep into that.
Yeah, we feel like we've got that story pretty confirmed at this point. So we've done our due diligence on that one. We got all the sources on Owen Chambliss being football smart. But I think that's a big deal, like to have, the guy in the middle of your defense sort of as a command center, and you feel like pre-snap you're ready to roll. That's going to be sort of an under the radar thing that is going to be huge when you get to the season, is like, how well does this team communicate at the linebacker and the safety spot? And I think Chambliss and Jameer Khan, although he's got a battle with Rex Guthrie, I think both those guys are very high with the football IQ. And so it kind of gives you hope there.
It's funny. A big part of like the storyline heading into the Tony White defense, and it was a storyline that was made by Tony himself, where he would just say, we're using a lot of guys. We're going to use a lot of guys. And I remember watching some of those games in year one of the press box, and there'd sometimes be whole line changes, in terms of guys running in, guys running out. And, I remember too, you might laugh at this. Like, I was sitting pretty close to you when during that Northwestern game where James Williams had a sack, and everyone goes, who the hell is that guy? Where are you kidding? Where did that guy come from? And I think it was Brunts who was like, yeah, they got that guy from, like, he's the one who ended up knowing that. It's funny. Like, do you get the same vibe with Orich, with new system, 4-2-5, a lot of pieces, kind of a lot of experience, really top to bottom across the defense? Do you get the vibe that, that might be kind of the same thing where there will be a lot of bodies we'll see throughout this defense? Or is it going to kind of be, no, we have the guys that we want, and this is going to be our crew that we trot out more oftentimes than not?
I think they're going to play a lot of guys. They've said as much. And I mean, you're right about Tony. Like, I always remember the first quarter, that first game at Minnesota. They played like 20 some guys like before the first quarter was over on defense. And
yeah.
I don't know if we're going to hit that number. I'm curious if they'll rotate as much on the back end when the games are competitive. Like, I'm not sure yet. Like, I could see where maybe you have your main five, and I'm counting, of course, Donovan Jones as a nickel as the fifth. But linebacker, for example, I feel like there's like, four guys they might want to play. Like, we know the main three, and we'll see if like Dawson Merritt or somebody else kind of joins that crew. And then he has said on the interior of the defensive line, people can believe it or not, that they have the bodies to do it, but they want to play six.
Yeah.
And when he says that, I'm taking it as we want to run with six, that where we don't feel like there's a drop off the cliff when the fourth, fifth, sixth guys come in. So that's where guys like Tyson Terry are huge. Like, if they're coming on, that does give you a chance to maybe get to that number. And I do think they have the potential to, roll like four guys at edge. Named some of them earlier. Jordan Ochoa, I think, could still have something to say about things too. So when you add up all the names, I think they could get to like 18, 20, where you're sort of mixing and matching a little bit early on, and sort of seeing who has what, when the scoreboard's on.
All right. Brian Christopherson, for those keeping track at home, brought up Rex Guthrie and Jordan Ochoa, two names that not a lot of people are bringing up. I'm keeping track, BC. I'm reading between the lines. Don't think you're all sneaky with me.
Well, I'm not trying to be sneaky, but I mean, Guthrie started last year, and I don't want to discount he's back from injury that he can be in that conversation for that job.
Absolutely,
he can be. And then Ochoa, I listen closely. You're doing it to me. I do it to Rule. He'll just sometimes drop a name. And you're like, okay, that's interesting that he threw that in there.
He's great at that. He's so good at that.
He slipped an Ochoa in last week, so that's where that comes from.
I'm sorry, that phrasing that just out of context. That's very funny. That might be a part of your intro if we make that for you one day.
All right, that sounds good.
BC, I appreciate you, my man. These are always great conversations. You're always you're really in your element when we have the crossover of football and basketball going on at the same time. That's prime Brian Christopherson, but you're hitting all the high notes, and we appreciate your coverage and information, my friend, and look forward to talking to you again in the future.
All right. Thanks a lot, Matt.
Brian Christopherson of Huskers 24/7. I don't know. There's just so many names being thrown out. And BC kind of mentioned it. There's just a lot. It seems like there's a lot of fluidity happening on this football roster with, new defensive coach, new defensive systems, guys who are new, who are talented versus guys who are older but experienced, them trying to get themselves on the field. It's just feel like there's so many different names, and from day to day and article to article and source to source, you just hear something different in terms of Mosey and Rule and Evans and, Caleb Benning and McDougal and Khan and all that type of stuff. And now, I read today on the Tunnel Talk, and BC said Jordan Ochoa's name gets brought up. So it's one of those things where it's, especially when you don't go to practice, when you can't go to practice, you can't see these guys take reps every day. It's a lot of just whispering and rumors, and it always makes this season, this time of the season, very interesting. But we should get a whole lot of answers in the next couple of weeks when the season finally starts. All right, on news, we banged it yesterday. We'll bring it back today. Jake Janicek telling you all the weird and wacky things going across the world coming up next here on Middays with Matt. Alrighty, our final odd news without Josh Oddson for quite a bit. Jake Janicek filling in for J.O. He's been doing it the whole week. Been doing a phenomenal job. You have been, Jake. So thank you so much for helping us here at Middays with Matt. What is our odd news stories today?
So our first one comes out of England, where Count Binface becomes Britain's most successful comedy candidate. So I do have a photo here.
Okay. Is it on the screen?
Yes, it's on the screen. Would you like to see what Count Binface looks like? So basically, Count Binface.
Can you put it back on there, please? Oh my God. So what does Count Binface do, Jake Janis?
So basically, he ran for I think some position higher up in England, and he ended up gaining 9,500 votes. The person that ended up winning did win with 22,000 votes, but Count Binface somehow was able to kind of get elected into England's top office with getting 27% of the votes.
Wow. Look at Count Binface.
I know.
That's incredible. That's like Recyclops from The Office. You remember Recyclops?
I do.
God, what a dude, we should do top 10 Office cold opens one day. That'd be incredible. What's our second odd news story?
So the workforce behind badminton's world championships in New Delhi next week had to hire a small group of men called monkey whisperers. So there's a certain species of monkeys that are a menace in India's national capital, often gate crashing buildings and attacking unsuspecting pedestrians or residents. So these people were hired to mimic a bigger primate to try to kind of scare those monkeys away from trying to get to the building of the badminton world championships.
Okay. Very, very interesting that they have to. Apparently, there's a monkey problem. With the badminton world championships. Talk about a word that I definitely can't say. Have you ever played badminton before?
I played badminton. You know, we had it back in school, playing it in gym.
I was the dumbest lesson we did in gym. The dumbest unit we did in gym was badminton. Where I'm kind of some of the stuff that we play, there should be a golf unit in school because golf is a life skill. Basketball, all right, if there are kids in the car right now, basketball, life skill, all right? There will be a point where being good at basketball after you graduate college or while you are playing pickup in college is a life skill. Golf, life skill. For when you're in business, when you're in administration, when you're in marketing, you go to those golf trips, life skill. What life skill is badminton? What life skill is that? Absolutely.
It's a weaker version of pickleball, weaker version of tennis. You just hit a little floaty thing.
Be careful here, Jake Janis, with the next story, you're right, because Alex Sindelar believes we're becoming too political. He was thinking it was too well. They do call me Matt McLib. That is a nickname. Oh, Matt's got a good take. He goes, wrestling is the biggest life skill sport. I agree.
Yeah.
Matt, you're up there. I don't think there are too many that would be bigger than that. Pesky goes, golf is a life skill when you think about it. It is. It really is a life skill. Doug in Idaho says square dancing in the 1980s was the worst PE segment. Think about square dancing. We actually, in Chicago, we didn't have a square dancing segment. We had a hip hop unit in my elementary school, believe it or not. All right, what's our final odd news story?
A pair of loose goats wandered into a transit station in Portland, Oregon, and even briefly boarded a bus before fleeing the area. So the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon on social media, there was a call to 911 claiming 2 goats wandering loose at the FX2 bus station in the area. And basically the 2 goats went onto the bus, and then that next stop they went off, and they still actually don't know where the goats are. The goats got off the bus, and
this is in Oregon.
Yep, Portland, Oregon.
Wow. So just Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa were just walking around Portland, Oregon. Is that what was happening? 2 goats.
Yeah, 2 goats.
Michael Jordan and Tom Brady were taking some buses in Oregon. That's what was happening. Out. You like animal odd news stories. I feel like that's kind of your. Josh Oddson loves. Whoa! Wait, something just happened. Come inside. Yeah, someone's got to come in here. Because Josh Oddson loves odd news stories that have to do with people blowing things up and, sex and people in Florida. You love odd news stories of animals, which is very interesting. No, I'm talking to Jake Janisek. You come here, sit down here on the second microphone. Chris Prudon has just shown us something here that we must show on camera. Turn on your microphone.
I'm moving it around, and I didn't want it on for the movement.
All right, go ahead and show people.
So let me tell you first. Magnetic.
Talk into the microphone.
Magnetic, has a hook, has a leather little
Yeah,
I
for
don't
your
know,
bag. Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
But the official 1620 The Zone golf tournament towel. Check
Put
it
on that
the
studio camera. Look at that. That looks great. Here, give it to me. Our camera's over here, please. Chris Prudon.
You get the full image on
Well,
the big
no,
cam.
you get the full image here on this
It's
camera.
a big towel.
Look at that.
That's
Dude,
nice.
this is pretty dope. It's
Yeah.
actually the nice. So for you golfers out there, this material, it's like kind of the nicer material that is like pretty firm. You can clean. It's not like a cotton towel. Like it's more of
Like a waffle. It's
like
a waffle
yeah,
towel
it's
with-
like more. It's a true golf towel.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Very impressive stuff here. So this is it. I
That
gotta
is it.
snag myself.
Just arrived.
Sponsored by T-Box and Cutwater. Our
There you
friends
go.
at T-Box. Awesome. Go and get your box assessment, man. Go and see how your swing looks like. Love
And
myself
I
some T-Box.
think there's still a couple foursomes left.
There are.
Just a
We
couple.
are running out of spots next Friday, August 21st, Miracle Hill Golf Course. $400 for a foursome, $100 gets you 18 holes of golf. It gets you food. It gets you drink. It gets you VIP access into the Phoenix for our after party on top of all hole prizes. All 18 holes get tickets. You can get gift cards, get money, and we're going to give out prizes if you finish first, second, or third in the first and second flight for the 1620 Zone Golf Tournament. So go to 1620zone.com, sign up now, and you can go ahead. Are these given out or you win these? Oh, you get this towel. You will get this towel when you sign up. A bang for your buck. Let's hit a break here and talk about the Field of Dreams. Happened yesterday. We'll talk about that coming up next here on MWM. We'll reiterate it once again. Spots are going very quickly for the 1620 The Zone golf tournament at Miracle Hill Golf Course. There's only a couple of foursomes left, so get in on it now. 1620thezone.com. When you sign up, it's $400 for a foursome, okay? $100 per player. It gets you 18 holes of golf. It gets you complimentary food, complimentary drink. It also gives you VIP access to our after party at the Phoenix. You'll get some a goodie bag, which I believe will include this 1620 The Zone golf towel here that Chris Prudon has just given to me. Look at that puppy. Awesome. And I'm telling you, as a golfer myself, this is like the perfect material for a towel. So you will, if you sign up for the foursome, right, you go to the 1620 The Zone golf tournament, you are going to get this towel. So awesome stuff, along with whole prizes at every single hole, a bunch of tickets, a bunch of gift cards, a bunch of opportunity for you to make this worth your while, along with the fact that we are going to be giving out prizes for first, second, and third place in the first and second flights for this tournament. So plenty of opportunity. You're going to pay $100 to be in this tournament, right? If you have a foursome, $100 per player, but you're going to have more than an ample opportunity to gain money, to get money through gift cards, get money through tickets. You know, you're going to be able to make this worth your while, and you're going to go ahead and get the 1620 The Zone golf towel, right? So go ahead, make it worth your while, 1620thezone.com. Very excited for this tourney next Friday, August 21st at Miracle Hill. Am I good on the stream? My computer is having a panic attack right now. It's absolutely
you look good right now.
All right, good. I look good right now. That's all that matters. Do you know what also looks good? The Field of Dreams game every single year for Major League Baseball. I mean, it's one of the best settings, one of the best things that Major League Baseball does. Look, I'm not an MLB guy, so I'm not as big of an MLB guy as a lot of these guys on the station. From someone who's a casual viewer of Major League Baseball, which casual is, I watch a couple of Cubs games a week, which tough loss yesterday to the Washington Nationals. I really like the Cubs offense. They've been playing great, but I'm a little bit nervous about playoff pitching. I don't know if they have a ton of it on that roster right now, but regardless, it's a really cool event that they do. Remember the first time they did it a couple years ago, it was awesome. And they've just continued to do it. And, you know, that pregame ceremony where they have all of the players go ahead and walk through the corn, right? And they all come out and they're all, you see the starting lineup, you see Bryce Harper, you see Don Mattingly, you see the best players on both teams. And then yesterday they had 26 Hall of Famers at that game, and they also walked through the corn. It was super, super cool. The 26 Hall of Famers is believed to be the most Hall of Famers to attend any big league game since the 2008 All-Star game at Yankee Stadium, where 49 Hall of Famers gathered for the Iconics ballpark, the old Yankee stadiums. I believe it was this last season. So really cool stuff yesterday. The Phillies end up winning 7-1. 4 homers were hit at the Field of Dreams game, 2 of them by Kyle Schwarber. Still hurts my Cub heart every time you go ahead and you see Schwarber hit another bomb. It was announced today, though, that we already have the teams who will play in next year's Field of Dreams game for Major League Baseball. It's going to be the Kansas City Royals and the Boston Red Sox, Thursday, August 12th, 2027. It'll be Red Sox versus the Royals. It'll mark the 4th edition of the event, following the White Sox and Yankees in 2021 and the Reds and Cubs in 2022, and then yesterday Twins and Phillies last night. So they obviously took a little bit of a break between when the Reds and Cubs did it to now, but they're going to do it again next season. Kansas City will be the team that will play Boston at the Field of Dreams game. I was looking online, Jake Janicek, for you, because I know that you're a Kansas City Royals fan.
I am a Royals fan.
I looked up Field of Dreams MLB ticket prices. The AI overview gave me this answer. Get-in prices started around at $575 to $650, while most lower-level and premium seats range from $1,100 to over $2,500. So still going to be a pretty hot ticket to get, but a very cool event that the Major League Baseball puts on, continuing to do it next year, already have a cool little poster that the Royals posted on their Twitter with Cags and Bobby Witt Jr. standing there in the corn. So should be a ton of fun. And yesterday it was I didn't watch the game live. I went back. I watched some highlights of it, and it's always a really, really cool just setting to see those teams play there. Matthew goes, I think it'd be cool to have Cubs Cardinals game there. I do too. I think it'd be very cool as well. J-Man goes, next year during the lockout, huh? Yeah, that's tough. I mean, next year, like the All-Star game is supposed to be at Wrigley Field next year, which I think is going to be awesome if it actually happens. I mean, at this point, Jeff Passan said in a recent interview that he is more confident than not that there will be actual Major League Baseball games next season. It's just there will be a lockout at some point. I mean, they're like the league will be locked out. Whether or not that affects how many games are played and, if games are played at all is still definitely to be determined. But at this point, with the initial negotiations and just how far apart the two sides are, especially when it comes to, the salary cap, and there's just seems like there's no way that the MLBPA is going to allow there to be a salary cap. It just seems like we're destined for an actual lockout. How that will affect the 27th season, TBD. But another cool event that this is the problem. I mean, the kind of the issue that Major League Baseball has right now is like whenever you announce a cool thing, or whenever you talk about the trade deadline for this season, or really anything that might impact long-term the MLB, you're always just quickly reminded, hey, the MLBPA and the owners can't get their crap together and agree that, hey, we for sure can have a season next year. So, I mean, it just seems like with Major League Baseball, there is always kind of feel like the game really does a good job of taking a couple steps forward, and then, it ends up taking a step back, and they took some pretty big steps forward with the pitch clock. It took some pretty big steps forward with, the rules that allowed base stealing to become more efficient, right? Because for a very long time, stealing bases was looked at as an incredibly inefficient thing to do, stemming from sabermetrics and analytics. But it's same thing with all the Scott Docterman wrote about how when Major League Baseball did the first Field of Dreams game, there were people in Iowa who are still complaining about the blackout restrictions that Iowa residents have when it comes to trying to watch their teams, and how they just felt that there were too many teams that were being blacked out from people who wanted to watch baseball in Iowa. 5 years ago, Rob Manfred said, oh, we're working on it, we're going to see. And 5 years later, still nothing has changed. And it's one of those things with MLB. It's like, great ABS, great pitch clock, great quicker games, great bigger bags, and great, you can't throw over as much as you used to anymore, and all this awesome stuff, and you can't skip out of the box, and we've sped up the game. And then there's just all this other stuff where it's like, not so great. Oh, okay, that's kind of annoying. Oh, that's maybe not the best for the game. So that's just kind of been the story of Major League Baseball in the last couple of years. I do think, though, more positive things have happened than negative, because more and more young people are watching baseball, which is very, very good. Let's go ahead and talk about another sport more people are watching and talking about, volleyball. And one of the reasons that people are watching and talking about volleyball more and more is because of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, because of the impact that the University of Nebraska has had on the sport in general, right? I mean, Harper Murray was at the ESPYs. Harper Murray was at the World Cup, right? We have a collegiate volleyball player who has been on, massive stages in just all of sports, right? You have, more and more volleyball players. If you're on Instagram or social media, you're on TikTok, you see more and more volleyball players across the country being influencers and doing marketing for companies, and, expanding their brands, and building your brand has become a massive thing in volleyball, more so than it was 10 to 15 years ago. And that has a lot to do with social media. That has a lot to do with, there's just been so much more of an emphasis on women's athletics and supporting women's athletics and watching women's athletics. And, that movement has helped, collegiate volleyball as well. But Nebraska has really been on the forefront on pushing the sport forward. And they're going to continue to do that this season when they go and they play on the biggest stages in all of college volleyball. They're going to play at Jerry's World, in an exhibition for NIL money. They're going to go to Vegas and play at the T-Mobile Arena, where T-Mobile Arena very quietly has become the place for a lot of very historic happenings, especially in combat sports. A lot of historic things have happened at T-Mobile Arena, also the home of the Las Vegas Golden Knights, one of the best franchises in all the National Hockey League. It's one of those things where Nebraska's going to go to Jerry's World. They're going to go to Vegas. They're going to play at Wrigley Field. They're going to play at a baseball stadium. It's going to be quite incredible, the stage that they're going to be put on. And, when you look at it that way, it's a massive season, right, for exposure, a massive season for Nebraska to continue to build their brand and be on the front of this college volleyball, movement and it becoming more popular and more people watching it, and the national championship games and the NCAA tournament games being put on bigger platforms and television networks and national TV and so on and so forth. But as big of a season as it might look on the outside of Nebraska being put on all these different stages and all of these eyes, I don't know where everybody else is playing in volleyball, but I'm pretty confident in saying that I don't think there are going to be more eyes on Nebraska than anyone else in college volleyball. It's a big season from that regard, but internally, you can make the argument that it's a bigger season internally than it is externally with how, all these eyes are going to be on you because of the legacy of this senior class, of Bergen Riley, of Lady Choboy, of Andy Jackson, of Harper Murray, and all of the things that they've accomplished. This group has accomplished so much. They've honestly accomplished more than you could possibly imagine other than win the national championship. They've done everything but win the Natty. They played in front of a football, they played in a football stadium. They've played on the biggest stage, played in the national championship, played in the Final Four, played in one of the best Elite Eights that we've seen. They have been on the top stages across the country. This year is going to be another legacy-defining year where they play at a baseball stadium and a football stadium. They go to Vegas and play the Players Era Classic. They have athletes on their team, an athlete on their team in Harper Murray, who is not just reaching in, becoming one of the biggest players in volleyball, one of the most well-known players in volleyball. She's becoming a mainstream athlete, a type of mainstream athlete that, she talked about how she was, I think she was at a Super Bowl party or she was at some event. And George Kittle and his wife came up to her and said, "Oh, we know who you are. We know that you're a Nebraska volleyball player. We're familiar with you. We've seen you guys play before." Right. Like they've accomplished so much, yet they haven't won it all. They haven't done the big thing. And, you add in the stages they're going to be on, you add in the fact that they haven't accomplished the main goal, you add in now this other weird element with the 5-for-5 rule that, you kind of came into the season. It almost would have been like, from like a mental, I could see somebody making the argument, and I would have to think this through. I don't know if this is my opinion, but I could see somebody making the argument that you almost kind of wish they all knew this was their last year, that there wasn't kind of that thought in the back of their head that they could all be back in some sort of capacity next year. Kind of, you almost like, because they all talked yesterday, the four seniors, Bergen, Harper, Andy, and Laney, is all kind of like, we don't know what the future holds for us at this point. And we know that 5-for-5 is out there, and we know that there's a possibility that there's another year after this, but we're attacking this year like we would attack any year, like we're trying to win a national championship. And like, that's another just weird element to this entire season of like, oh, some of them could be back. They all could be back. Maybe, it's just another weird kind of thing there. And you go back and through all of this, right, through being on the forefront of the popularity of volleyball, being able to accomplish everything but the main goal of winning a national championship. Now you add in the weird element of like, is this the last year? Is it not the last year? With all the travel that you're going to be doing in the beginning of the season, where you're going to be playing 6 games in like 10 days in 4 different states. It's crazy. Despite all of that, Danny Busboom Kelly gets up in front of that microphone, and she is cool as a cucumber, cooler than the other side of the pillow, has this confidence in her team, in her roster, in what they're going to be doing this year. But it's not like brash or arrogant or ignorant or anything of that sort. It's just a coach who knows she's great, and a coach that she knows she's got a great roster. who's willing to say, yeah, we got the middle blocker of the year, and even if we didn't have her, we'd still have the best middle room in the country. But she doesn't do it in a way that like it was like, ugh. Like it's not like she doesn't do it that way. Because Kurt Signetti says that stuff, and you still have people who are like, ugh, I can't stand that guy. He's so cocky. He's so braggadocious. Like it's off-putting. She's not off-putting at all. DBK is DBK. She's dynamite. She knows she's a really, and here's the thing too about Danny Busboom Kelly, right? You know, there was a cool social media video I saw, and they were asking volleyball players at Big Ten Media Days. They were like, hey, describe your coach, right? Like, how would you describe your coach in one word? And you know, some players were like, oh, Cali cool. And some players were like, oh, strict. And some players were like, oh, you know, this, like they're saying some pretty like easy, you know, very coach talk, like how you would describe a coach, right? And Andy Jackson was asked, how would you describe Danny Busboom Kelly? And Andy Jackson said, she's a girl. You know, she's a girl. She's like, you know, and kind of explain, oh, she's a girl's girl. You know, she's like, and the way that Andy said it, I would go back and I don't do it justice. Me saying the quote doesn't do it justice. It's Andy's got a big smile on her face talking about her coach and talking about how she just connects. And you could see through that description how she just connects so well, DBK does, with her team. And it's one of those things where she presents herself in that way, and she connects with her team really well, and she has this confidence and she has this belief in herself and the roster, but at the same time, she's willing to make those tough decisions. She's willing to pull Lainey Choboy out and say, hey, you're not playing well today. We're going to make Olivia Mock the libero, and we'll go ahead and we'll beat Kentucky. She's willing to say, hey, you know what, Andy, I know you've been great the entire year and you're one of the best players in the country, but you're not playing that well against Texas A&M. Take a seat and we're going to figure this thing out, right? She's willing to make those tough in-game decisions. She's willing to make decisions that maybe for some coaches, you know, affects a relationship between a player, right? Sitting a player down and telling a player who's been great all year, hey, in this moment, you're not helping us. We need to go to a different, you know, player. We need to use our bench a little bit more. Sometimes that strains relationships in athletics. And the fact that she's able to do that, and specifically, you know, she sat Andy down during the Texas A&M game, and then now a whole offseason later, Andy Jackson is talking about her as if they're best friends, right? Like that just goes to show you the connection that she can make with that roster. And I've just always been super impressed with DBK, how she presents herself, how she talks about the team, how she talks about herself as a coach, and how she just, you know, she connects with them. She connects with them really, really well. And I think I'm very excited about this Nebraska volleyball season. They're a deep team, obviously, and that's what happens when you're Nebraska and you essentially get to choose who plays for you, you know, when it comes to top prospects and recruiting, because when you play for Nebraska volleyball, there's not another team that can say, hey, you're going to be on this stage as much as we are. Other than maybe Texas, there really isn't another volleyball program that can promise a player you're going to get this amount of exposure. And these amount of people are going to watch you every single time you play. And you're going to get this big of a media core, right? Listening to Danny Busboom Kelly's, you know, press conference yesterday with her at the podium, like, how many different voices did you hear? I heard like 9 different reporters. 10 different reporters asking DBK questions. I saw about 7 different publications of some sort posting a video or posting quotes from, you know, volleyball players and what they were being asked. Where else across the country is that happening? You know, where else across the country are you going to have multiple full-time people who are like, I'm the volleyball writer. This is what I do. Like, it doesn't really happen across the country, which is why Nebraska is just able to use that and say, who else takes care of you better than over here? And that's why they have, you know, all these battles and so much depth, because consistently they can use that and they can use their exposure and they can use their importance to say, if you want to be an important volleyball player, if you want to be somebody people know about, you play here at Nebraska, which is a very underrated piece of what Harper Murray has become. Because Harper Murray isn't just a volleyball player anymore. Harper Murray is like a mainstream athlete being put on the biggest stages, you know, like the World Cup, like the ESPYs, and it's so crazy to put those two in the same sentence, but you know what I'm saying? where Nebraska be like, look at Harper. Look at what she's become. You have a great personality. You're awesome at volleyball. You could become that too. You can be put on this stage as well. It's incredible to see it. And it's someone who didn't grow up here, like immediately upon arriving at Nebraska, I was explained how important volleyball was. But I think that this volleyball team and their status and their mainstream coverage has even reached a point that I don't even know if Nebraskans could have really ever foreseen coming. Archers in the chat goes, Nebraska volleyball equals Ohio State football. They don't always win it, but GD, they're always right there with ridiculous talent. Imagine if football here was the equivalent of Nebraska volleyball. That's what it's like at Ohio State every single fall. Yeah. And when we talk about, to Archer's point, who was the first football program and first roster we started talking about $20 million rosters with?
Ohio State.
It was Ohio State, right? Whenever we have these conversations about spending a lot on NIL and spending a lot on the rev share and putting as much money to football, we always talk about Ohio State kind of being on that cutting room floor, being at the cutting edge, being at the top, right? Doing things that teams aren't doing. That's kind of what Nebraska volleyball does, to Archer's point. It's a great comparison where Nebraska volleyball, it always seems like if anybody is the first to do something, Nebraska volleyball is in that conversation. And they have a coach who's, she's cool, man. She's just cool. She's just got a presence. She's got an aura. And the more they win and the bigger stages they're on and the more national championships, hopefully one day she could add to that trophy case, the more aura she's going to have. Her first season, undefeated regular season, and an undefeated Big Ten. It's crazy. All right. Take a break here. We got more things to touch on. We've been very kind of peering back to our TV over here, watching the New England Patriots take on the Indianapolis Colts in this preseason game, which I thought the over would hit. It did not. But Anthony Richardson looked pretty good. We'll do some training camp updates later in the show. Austin Jacobson will also join us. We'll run through some of that Tunnel Talk article that I was referring to earlier in the show. Some pretty good info. It just seems like info is a little bit all over the place, but that's what happens when you don't really get to be at practices. So we'll talk about all that and more here on Middays with Matt.
Skokie, Illinois, not the place that the Chicago Bears will be building their next stadium. I don't know if you saw this yesterday, Jake Janicek, but Kevin Warren and George McCaskey had a press conference talking about the stadium project for the Chicago Bears. And at this point, they are determined to go to Hammond, Indiana, where my current opinion is after 4 years of doing this BS, I really don't care where they go anymore. So not Thursday, but Kevin Warren, it was a great article by John Greenberg in The Athletic, it was a scathing article, just absolutely decimated Warren and McCaskey, which it is so on brand and on point for this Bears franchise in what is the most exciting time in their franchise's history in at least 40 years. I mean, that's it. I mean, the last time we were this excited about a team was probably after the 85 season, where that 86 defense, you go ahead and look that up before Jim McMahon. No, don't actually go and look it up, but I'm just saying Jim McMahon, before he got hurt in 86, that 86 Bears defense was better than the 85 defense. Like, this is the first time in 40 years that the Bears just have everybody fired up, even more so than, after the 2018 season. Because even after 2018 for the Bears, people knew that, hey, this was probably lightning in the bottle. Like, this defense probably isn't going to last as long as you think it is. They got so many turnovers last year. Matt Nagy, like, his offense was kind of starting to fall apart, like, toward the back half of the year. Like, there's a possibility that this thing is a one-year deal, which it ended up being. I don't think anybody thinks that because Ben Johnson is there and he's just an absolute sicko and just such a hard worker. And Caleb Williams, all reports are stating that he's doing a phenomenal job in training camp. This is the most excited Bears fan have been in quite some time. And of course, it's just so chef's kiss for all of that to be absolutely, just everything that they're accomplishing right now is being shaded over the fact that they just can't figure out their crap when it comes to the stadium. And they're going to go to Indiana and everybody's making these jokes. The thing is, too, is like, Kevin Warren was brought in to build the stadium. That was his thing because he took all that credit for doing it in Minnesota. He did a terrible job as the Big Ten commissioner. They bring him in to build the stadium. It hasn't been built, even though they've had the location now for basically 4 years in Arlington, Illinois. And he was asked yesterday, have you made any mistakes? Has there been anything that you can hearken back to and say, we could have done that better? And he said, no mistakes, just learning experiences. Get the F out. All right. Get the absolute F out. It's so annoying. John in the chat goes, and the Illinois politicians aren't at fault at all. John, they're all idiots. They're all idiots. They're all at fault. All right. Everybody has their heads up there. You know what? Am I going to say the word? Am I going to say the word ass? See, I just said the word ass. See, I'm saying, like, they all got their heads up there. You know what? It's crazy. Baymon goes, the Bears hiring Warren with his track record is still baffling. Baymon, I thought that after all the articles I read about, he did such a great job in Minnesota building that stadium. I was like, all right, maybe I'll give the guy the benefit of the doubt. He sucks. And George, by the way, on a ranking of like worst things that people can say about you before they say mean things about you, every time anybody talks about George McCaskey, it's followed up by, he's a nice guy. That's got to be the worst, by the way. Every time somebody talks about you, they lead off with, he's a nice guy. But the biggest but is coming. And with George McCaskey, it's, he's a nice guy, but I don't know if he's fit to run a football organization. Plain and simple. The amount of things that they had to beg that guy to do to finally make the right decisions when it came to firing Eberflus and then, coughing up enough money, $13 million, might I add, to pay Ben Johnson to be the head coach of the Bears. The amount of begging that had to go on to have that happen is embarrassing, which I think that's why they should get. Ryan Poles somehow has come out looking the best out of these three goobers, which is absolutely incredible as Joey Warcola walks right by me. Right on point. Mr. Second place over there. He doesn't know we're talking about him. Speaking about bad decisions, a very interesting quote. I already read it earlier in the show, but I want to say it again. Tunnel Talk was released today from Husker Online and On3. Steve Sipple, Sean Callahan, Robin Washut, Abby Barmo, Brian Munson. They all do a great job of
kind of giving you little bits and pieces of their expertise. And so Sean and Sip were very kind enough to share some of the information to On3 subscribers in terms of what they've been hearing. And one quote that Sean wrote was, another person I spoke with said the biggest thing that he sees with the defensive staff changes is the level of coaching going on with the D-line. He said, quote, they're actually getting coached. Now, the combination of Corey Brown, Roy Manning, and Dave Tollefson has been very good. And, we had our first segment earlier on where I talked about the evolution of Matt Rule and hiring staff. And, very much that first staff wasn't necessarily about bringing in the best coaches in the country to go ahead and coach your players. It was bringing in the right coaches to set your culture so you can have that foundation. And then eventually hire some very heralded coaches in the country like Jeep Wade, like Rob Orich. And, just speaking about mistakes when it comes to hiring, I would probably make the argument that Terry Braden is up there, if not the biggest mistake in terms of just hiring a certain type of coach for a room like that. So it is encouraging to see that, they got guys who have been in coaching for a very long time, who are controlling those rooms and who are really hitting home on the lessons in terms of developing the defensive line, because that's the key they need to figure out. The defensive back room is very interesting right now in terms of the different things that you're hearing in terms of who's standing out and who, is taking over, and the cornerback roles and the safety roles and who's at nickel. I think at this point, I'd be very confident in telling you Donovan Jones will be the nickel. Andrew Marshall will be the first corner. And then it seems like Jameer Khan in some way, shape, or form is going to have something to say or, have some sort of role in the defensive backfield. That's the vibe I'm getting just based off of what we've read, what we've heard, and what some things I've been told. I think that those, I can tell you pretty confidently, I feel like D. Jones will be at the nickel. You'll have Marshall at cornerback 1, and then you're going to have some sort of Jameer Khan influence. Where that might be on the field, TBD. But then I think everything else is very interesting in terms of Victor Evans versus Jeremiah Charles, right? Like, those are two guys we've heard a ton about in terms of Evans, Florida fast, got recruited out of the portal, comes in. I think originally when we were talking about the cornerback 2 battle, it was a lot of Odom, 5-star cornerback prospect out of Florida versus Charles. Evans has now emerged out of that. But Jeremiah, from all things that we've heard, not only just from reporters, but also from, Rule and coaches himself, has done everything right and has done everything he's needed to do to put himself in a position to be in that kind of CB2 role. Another name out there that you hear plenty of is Caleb Benning, and, him emerging and him developing as a player. And, Caleb was a guy that, plays in the Boston College game. And obviously a lot of people were familiar with his time at West Side and his tape and what he accomplished there as a high school football player here in Omaha. But you watch him in the Boston College game and you go, wow, that's energy. That's explosiveness. That's physicality. Nebraska could use that. And then I think you got to points last season where you were thinking, you're kind of wondering, can we see him more, right? You just didn't see him a lot. It's not that like he went out there and he didn't play well. He just didn't really play, especially when you had guys playing in that safety role who weren't keeping up their end of the bargain. That's a way of putting it. And so, that's a guy who could be developing, could be coming into his own, could be kind of that physicality that they need on that back end, who's emerging. And then you got Dwayne McDougal, who, according to Sean Callahan here, his sources tell him that they would be shocked that if he wasn't starting for them at the safety position. He's a guy with the familiarity of Rob Orich's defense, and is, some people, at least that Sean is talking to, believe that he's the best overall safety. And so I think with the defensive back battles, it's not about, we just need to find people, right? It's who's the best of the bunch. And I think that, they have a lot of interesting options, and it's just going to come down to who's playing the best come fall camp. But I do think it speaks to they got some depth there. They got some athletes there. They got some legitimate recruits there. Jeremiah Charles is an athlete. Danny Odom is a legitimate athlete. Like he's a dog. Dwayne McDougal, like he understands the system really well. Andrew Marshall has emerged from level to level to level to the point where he's being relied upon to be the number one cornerback in the Big Ten. They've done a very good job of evaluating athletes, evaluating traits, evaluating and finding guys in the transfer portal, whether it be in the high school ranks or whether it be, from smaller schools, right? We talked about this. Marshall wasn't a P5 guy. Evans isn't a P5 guy. Bly Hill, before he, caught the injury bug, was a guy that they really thought could be a high impact guy for them. He, not a P5 guy. Jameer Khan did not come from Power 5 football. They've done a very good job of evaluating some lower level talent or talent in lower levels rather, and bringing them to Nebraska. And so whenever I hear the discourse from the defensive back room, I'm encouraged that it's not a conversation of like, oh, we just got to find one of these guys to play this role. It's more of, I don't know, man. They're all really competitive and they all really want a lot of playing time. And I think that a lot of the names that we're talking about are names that could see throughout the season, right? Whether it be through injury or whether it just be through multiplicity, playing in this 4-2-5 defense. Another great note here from Sean Callahan at the very end, and I think this is something pretty important. Callahan, I'll just read this. One important note on Damon Benning joining the staff. NCAA rules regarding individuals associated with a prospect can require certain hires to be placed in a role permitted to recruit off campus, rather than simply serving as an analyst or player personnel staffer. In Benning's case, he obviously has a son on the team and another who is a potential recruiting target in the class of 2028. They're referring to Damon's son Micah. According to bylaw 11.44, that would mean Benning would have to be tabbed as one of the 16 coaches who recruit on the road. This would make perfect sense in many ways, as who is better than Benning to handle the Omaha area schools? A similar thing had happened when the Huskers hired Jamar Mosey, as he had to be one of the coaches permitted to go on the road to recruit. At that time, he could only designate 10, as it has since gone up to 16. And so, great reporting there by Sean that, going through the bylaws and going through the rules, that DB is going to be in a position where he's going to be one of the on-road recruiters. Man, talk about a relationships guy. Talk about a guy who can connect not just with athletes and players, but who can connect with people, DB. And we'll talk to somebody who has a really good relationship with DB in about 20 minutes, and Oscar Jacobson. Like, he is a person, a relationships guy, a great personality, can connect with multiple people from multiple different facets of life, right? And, as Sean mentions, has a great understanding of the Omaha area, has relationships with all of these different high schools, knows the personalities of different coaches and the type of players they develop and so on and so forth. And from, and not just an in-state recruiting perspective, but also just, having more guys on your roster who can create connections with players, because that's what Nebraska is, right? We talk about Nebraska as a developmental program, but Matt Rule and his coaching staff want them to be a relationship program. It's not just about, oh, we're giving you the most money and we're rolling out the red carpet better than any other program. No, we want to have a personal connection with you. We want to have a relationship with you. We want our relationship to go just past how good are you on the field. And, DB kind of fits that mold of someone who, believes in that and who practices that, which is a big reason why, obviously him and Rule have a great relationship, and Rule eventually added him to his staff. So great reporting there by Sean, pointing out, hey, he's going to have to go on the road. And I think that is a positive for Nebraska recruiting. And I just think, you add that element to what all the things that he's going to be doing, it just continues to, obviously these things have to play out, right? But the understanding of what Damon is doing, the understanding of who Damon is, and a lot of people know who Damon is because that's the type of guy he is. It'd be hard to think that it's not going to work out really well for all sides involved. All right, hit a break here. Training camp updates from the NFL, and then Oscar Jacobson joins us at 1 o'clock here on Middays with Matt. Hey, don't forget to go to 1620thezone.com and enter in our Oregon road trip. We're sending 2 Nebraska football fans to Eugene, Oregon to see the Cornhuskers take on the Ducks. Here's what you got to do. Go to 1620thezone.com, enter right now for a chance to win, then keep listening to Unsportsmanlike Conduct for bonus chances next week to earn even more entries. The ultimate Husker road trip could be yours thanks to Woodhouse Auto Family and the 1620 Zone. Love Woodhouse. Appreciate them so much. And we want to mention here, our prizes include 2 tickets to Nebraska versus Oregon at Eugene, 2 round trip airfare for 2 from Omaha to Eugene, a 2-night hotel stay, and $150 gift card for food, rides, or game day gear. Jake Janis, I know you're busy, but can you hit the NFL training camp update music, please, my friend? Thank you. Training camp updates from across the National Football League. Let's first begin with everyone's favorite quarterback darling, with Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, what is the story going into the season for the Los Angeles Chargers? They have their offensive line back. Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, Slater, a first-round draft pick from Northwestern, Alt, a first-round draft pick from Notre Dame. They were both hurt last year, and it made the offense of the Los Angeles Chargers suffer greatly. Ladd McConkey went down massively in production, in part because he didn't have enough time to run routes because Justin Herbert was always under distress. Despite that, Justin Herbert, I thought, was valiant throughout the entirety of the year, just willing at times the Chargers to victory. But they have their bookends back. They have their tackles back. The problem is that the interior is still pretty bad. They have Tyler Biadasz, the longtime former Wisconsin center who's played for Dallas and Washington in his career. He's manning the center spot, but their guards are up in question. At this point, they still have not found their final guard. They have 5 different offensive linemen fighting for that final guard position. John Harbaugh reportedly wants that figured out as quickly as possible, but I will tell you this. If you got 5 offensive guards, then you don't have any offensive guards. So despite the fact that the tackles are back and Mike McDaniel is the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers, and Justin Herbert could be primed to have a very, very good year, unfortunately, it just seems like the offensive line could still end up being a problem for the Chargers. Let's go to all the way from Los Angeles to New York as we talk about the New York Giants. For you fantasy football owners out there, and especially for you fantasy football dynasty owners out there who need to set your keepers, I don't have great news. Malik Neighbors, who suffered a pretty bad knee injury last season. Look, there were rumors of, he's not good. He's limping. It's going to be some time before he gets back. All right, now he's back in camp, but he is not participating right now in team drills. He is on the field. He is working out, but he has not emerged in team drills and hasn't been doing as much participation as would indicate if he were going to play in week 1. So who has stepped up as Jackson Dart's top target? Isaiah Likely, the former Baltimore Raven tight end who has followed his head coach John Harbaugh from Baltimore to New York, has become a very good safety blanket, according to new offensive coordinator and former NFL head coach Matt Nagy. The biggest thing to know for the Giants is that it's a brand new program. I mean, they are doing things completely differently from what they were doing before Harbaugh got there. Here's a quote from an ESPN article. The Giants are working hard at training camp. There's no doubt about that. Even on a rare day when they weren't in pads and ran a mental rep practice that resembled a walkthrough, Coach John Harbaugh had the Giants on the field for 2+ hours. The practice concluded with them going over pregame introductions and the new routine for warmups. Every detail is important at the difficult Harbaugh camp, which had players in full pads at 7 of the past 10 practices. Jackson Dart is learning a brand new offense with not his usual weapons. And so it'll be interesting to see what the start of the season looked like for the New York Giants. Real quick, we'll give an update on the Miami Dolphins. They're going to be bad this year. That's the update you need. But Chop Robinson, in his 3rd year as a Miami Dolphin who played for Maryland and then Penn State as a defensive career, his final 2 seasons at Penn State as a defensive lineman, had 17.5 tackles for loss and 10 sacks. Seems like he's finding his stride in Miami Dolphins training camp. Caleb Douglas is a rookie wide receiver that could be one of their top weapons this season in a room that is lacking a lot of weapons for Malik Willis. And Jacob Rodriguez, the former Texas Tech linebacker, seems like he's a steal in the NFL draft for the Dolphins. So there is your NFL training camp updates. We'll be trying to do that as much before the beginning of the season. Austin Jacobson joins us next here on Middays with Matt.
Middays with Matt here on the 1620 The Zone radio network. Also, don't forget 97.7 The Zone out in central Nebraska. We bring in Sydney, Nebraska's very own Austin Jacobson. Had an incredibly busy week at Hurrdat Sports. AJ, how are you?
It's so good to be with you, Matt. So good to see you. Hopefully everything's well. In the rain coming down, it's going to ruin some of my camp plans, but that's fine. We'll be okay.
I'm very happy to see you. This is one of the better parts of it's been a long week. Guys tired over here. I know it's been a long week for not a long week, but you've been working a lot over there at Hurrdat Sports. So it's always great to kind of let loose a little bit. Just two friends on the radio. Damon Bennett, we're on the radio. Do you know that?
Do now.
Okay. DB goes from Hurrdat Sports, doing the morning show, obviously over there, to now working with Coach Rule, having a big role. The director of player development. We read earlier that through the bylaws that he is going to be allowed to go on the road and do some recruiting and stuff like that. And so obviously a very important role for Matt Rule. And I know that you've had obviously a really good relationship working with Damon for the past couple of years. So I'll give you the floor, man. Like what has he meant to you, and what has it been like since he's left, and everything like that, and what do you think he'll be like in the role? And also, obviously, you hosting the morning show for now, but all that stuff. But I'll give you the floor, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. So first, I don't know if Damon would say we have a great relationship. I think I have a great relationship with Damon. I think I am one of his best friends. I think he should text me more often. And I think that, if he ever needed anything, that I would be there in a moment's notice. But besides all of that, there is no better person to have the role in which the description and what that role is comprised of being. Multiple people would not be able to do the role that Damon Benning will be able to do for Nebraska, because there is no person that wants Nebraska to succeed more than Damon Benning. Yeah. On that same note, there's not a person that wants young people to succeed more in this state, and specifically in the Omaha area, more than Damon. And you mix those two personalities into him at the same time, it creates a dynamic duo in one person that can fulfill and sustain a continuous need for Nebraska football. Earlier this morning, Ravi and I were talking a little bit about the relationship between Omaha and the Huskers, and how it's kind of transpired a bit from Bruce Feldman's athletic freaks list, with 3 guys that were in the 21 and 22 class as well, that those guys, just had no relationship really with Nebraska, that there was a lack of communication. I think Matt Rule has done a great job of reestablishing that, even with some of the unique tropes that come with Ed Foley traveling out to the Archway and eating runs at every small town he possibly can. Damon amplifies that. And I think that he not only represents it, I think he amplifies it to a 10th degree. There's not a person that has more connection to high school football and to the connections that are needed to recruit in-state more than himself. And I think that it is an excellent, excellent spot for him. And not only that, it's a unique role that you could hire anybody in the country to do that and say, listen, some 25-year-old, 40-year-old, a guy that's been across college football in many, many years and many different walks of life at many different positions could do what Damon is doing. But the old problem is that no one would do it the same way as passionately as Damon wants to do it, because he wants both parties to succeed in the transition with high school in-state talent to Nebraska and what they can do for Nebraska football and the program. I think he believes in the university, and, for people who want to, people who say that, he may have different motives or anything through his media appearances and whatever, I don't worry about that, because if nothing else, Damon is a ride or die for Nebraska football and Nebraska University, I should say the University of Nebraska and Husker athletics. And you want people like that in your building. Whether you're working at a computer software programming company, if you're working for 1620 The Zone, if you're working at Hurrdat Sports, wherever you're working, you want people who will ride or die for your program, for your brand, and for what you believe that you can take that program to. You might as well have those people inside of your horse and carriage. And I think Damon's a great example of that. And I think he's a great hire for them just to keep that ship moving forward.
Well, in my experience, and you know this better than I do, but he just cares. Like the guy just cares about people, and when I got this midday show, he would
reach out to me and, say some things and give me opinions and, counter some opinions and stuff like that. Like, he didn't really know me, like it was like we haven't had before the midday show, we didn't have too many personal connections, but he knew that, his experiences in broadcasting and his experiences here in media in Nebraska, his experiences were there to potentially help me, become a better broadcaster. He didn't have to do that. He never had to do any of that stuff. He never had to reach out to me. And obviously, you've talked about how he's challenged you in his career, right? In your career, right? In terms of how you watch games and how you analyze things and how you've developed as a broadcaster. Even in that regard, right? Broadcasting, he's this guy who cares. He's willing to help people. He's willing to help make people get better. And, now he does it in the football side, which is, he was a player, man. He was awesome at Nebraska. He was a very good running back. And like you say, he cares about the university. He cares about young people, but he just cares about relationships. And Nebraska, we've always put they're a development program. They're a development program. I think Nebraska, more than being a development program, is a relationship program, right? Matt Rule's always talked about, we don't pitch people. We don't, hey, this is our pitch. We are who we are, right? And we care. We think that you would be a good fit here, and we want to develop you as not only just a football player, but a young man as well. And if you want to be a part of this, then let's do it. And that's the thing with Trey Taylor. And even I know Ahmad Hudson hasn't committed to Nebraska. He's committed to LSU. But what do those top prospects always talk about? The relationships being deeper, the relationships mattering so much more in Nebraska than other places. And so DB, I think, is a guy that fits that mold pretty perfectly. And I think you put it very well.
Yeah. And I think it's also something that we can all relate to, right? That, if you take the Damon and Nebraskan part out of it, I think that there's something to say about, if you believe in something or someone, then you want to put as much effort into that people as you can. And there was just someone who had a more public voice to be able to do that. And that was Damon for the past, 20 years or whatever it was that he was doing media, when he was on the Zone, when he was with Hurrdat, when he was with, different entities, whether he was on KETV, whether he was on the Big Ten Network, whether he was doing Westwood One Sports. I mean, he had a public profile of being able to, say just positive things about the places that he cares about the most. And I think that that's been a great thing. And I'll say this too, as much as it is a great thing for Damon and everything, I think it's a great thing for the state of Nebraska too, because as a lot of people who listen to a lot of the media and consume a lot of it, I know that there can be a lot of people that want to construe this as, okay, well, you're just adding, another person that's kind of, one of Rule's friends or a guy that has a very good relationship with Matt Rule into the staff. I see it more as, listen, you've got one of your own, not only in terms of Nebraska athletics and the football alum, but you've got an Omaha native, a guy who never wanted to leave, who has stayed in Omaha, a guy that has been a part of Nebraska's culture, and a guy who wants to back Nebraska. And, take for granted too, there's a lot of Omaha people that don't travel as much as Damon has done. He has traversed this state in so many ways for speaking engagements and all these other things. He has kept himself busy to know the lifeblood and the pulse of the state, and to get to know people as the farmers, as much as, the meat processors, the guys who work the cattle barns, all that stuff. He's done an excellent job of that. I don't think that there's someone that could fit that profile better than himself. I'm super, super happy for him. And I'm looking forward to him just seeing how this dream can continue for himself.
Talking about traveling the state to see different parts and things and whatnot. You're traveling the state right now, or maybe more in particular, the city of Omaha, going to different high school football training camps. So I was looking on NSAA.com, but you can correct me where I'm wrong. Next Friday, there will be 5 games, right? There will be 5 high school football games on Friday. And then the week after, there will be a plethora of Thursday games that will happen. And then mainly everybody else plays on Friday with a handful of games on Saturday. So we're essentially only a week away from the high school football season here in Nebraska, and 2 weeks away for it really kicking off. Next week may as well just be week 0, right, for high school football. Where have you been? What have you seen? What has stood out to you? I mean, it's just make this as long or short as possible as you want. But we're right around the corner. It comes high school football, and you're the man.
Yeah, so Mike Sauter has done a great job with a little bit more time that he's had to be able to go to a couple of different camp confidentials, and I've been able to kind of peek in on a few of them. I've had a few conversations just through the offseason with some guys that have committed to Division I programs, or just sticking my nose in on a couple of different off-season 7-on-7s and that sort of stuff as well. I've been able to go to a couple of volleyball matchups, or I should say camps. I've been able to go to a few football. I was at Creighton Prep earlier this week. Was at Waverly. And then on Friday, on Monday, I'll be able to go to Wahoo. So trying to get at least a different place in every single class. Later today, I'm talking with Ryan Smith, the head coach for Sydney, just trying to get a feel of where everything is. And the general feeling that I'm actually getting more than anything gets me very excited, specifically about high school football, Matt. I think we've got much more wide open classes, except for one. I'll make one exception. I think that we have such an excellent grouping of competitive football coming up this fall. And I don't think a lot of people want to give the credit for it because it looks black and white, especially in Class A in the largest class. I think everything is a lot closer than we perceived it to be. Sure. I'm very excited to see how that plays out. I'm hoping I'm not wrong, but if I am, I'll eat crow. But I think that there's a lot of football that's going to be played this fall that could surprise a lot of people.
You want to send me to a high school football game, one high school football game every week?
I definitely can. I can send you to a few. I'll try not to make sure that your travel bill gets too high. I'll try to keep you within the Omaha metro.
I'll be willing to go an hour if it's like a big game.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm a busy man.
Well,
I can't go 4 hours out to see whomever play whomever. See, I can't even really name a city. I'm not going to
totally fine. No.
I'm learning is what I'm doing.
I'll give you this. You will likely in Class A, especially, you'll be able to stay really in the nucleus of Omaha. The other Class A programs that are outside, even in the capital city of Lincoln East could be interesting. I think Southwest and Southeast bring back a couple of pieces that I'd be excited about. But generally speaking, most of the Class A conversation is going to revolve around the Omaha schools, especially Omaha West Side, Millard South as expected. You also get Creighton Prep in there. Millard North is going to be good. The outside conversations that we've heard before from Kearney, they're going under a first-year revision now with Kyle Peters as head coach. They will also, Grand Island is still going through a rebuild as well after Jeff Tomlin retired a couple of years ago. Fremont, North Platte, some of these other teams that are outside Norfolk included, they just don't have the same firepower that a lot of the Omaha schools have coming into this year. And again, no slight to them, but that's just, I think, how much Omaha has continued to step up and some of the talent compared to some of the quote unquote rural Class A schools. So you're probably safe staying within Omaha city borders for the foreseeable future of high school football.
Where was the last camp that you just came from?
Last camp. So yesterday I was at Lincoln Lutheran volleyball, and then Wednesday I was at Waverly for football.
What about Waverly?
Waverly makes things very interesting in Class B. This is kind of where I was before. I thought it was kind of a two-legged race in Class B between Waverly and Gretna East. A lot of people like Gretna East a lot. I have not been able to see them. I think I'll have to make an evaluation probably after that first week and have a better feel of where the rest of the class is. B could be a little bit tighter than what I first anticipated. Was able to see Norris in 7-on-7 action twice, one at their home camp, one at the NEB Prep 7-on-7 state championship. And they impressed me with how much they got better in the course of a week. And I think with more competition, Waverly is very, very, very good. And they are well ahead of schedule. I think there are some concerns about what they can do after the graduation of Nathan Axman. And if they're able to find a running back that can carry that load, at least maybe in the aggregate more than just one player. But they've got South Dakota commit Broxton Tepley at quarterback. They've got Gavin McMillan, who's an excellent kind of 3-layer threat on the deep ball, intermediate, and then he can also run the ball as a utility player at receiver for Waverly. Their defense is, I think, going to be incredible as well. But Gretna East reloads again. And so if we're talking about it right now on August 14th and we look ahead a few months to November, I don't doubt that both those teams will probably be hosting semifinal matchups when we get to the end of the Class B season.
All right, I have some breaking news here. Let's hear it. Stuff. You don't have to hit the music, Jake. Tim Verghese just tweeted.
Oh no.
Dana Holgerson just dropped the word fullbacks. Oh my God. Sound the alarm. Dana just used the F word at a presser.
Just use the F word. That's fantastic.
That is the F word of this state. If you say fullback anywhere, people just start looking around on Dodge. They're like, what this son of a gun just say? You have a power ranking who would be the fullback on Nebraska's roster? Do you have any idea who would play FB?
I'm trying to even remember who's on the roster that was even like a relative position because they had a Liebentritt there for a minute.
Liebentritt was the last one. Didn't Lindenmeyer kind of do a little like he kind of lined up a little bit as a fullback in the tight end position a couple of times.
Yeah, he's more of like a relative age,
But that was 2 years ago. That wasn't this year. I mean,
before I say this, I'm gonna look something up. I'm gonna cheat a little bit because I just need to see where somebody's okay. I've got a pick. He's not a traditional fullback. Archer in chat says Genatone. That's a really good pick. But if you want someone who's actually
that'd be a
play,
really good pick, actually. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
If you want someone outside of just like goal line situation, like strategically, specifically a fullback, there's two guys that come to mind. I think the first one to me is Connor Booth. I think that he is a very unique positional group at running back. I think he's got a lot of power. He had that at Bishop Newman. He's a fantastic power back, and he blasted through Class C, C2 for many years in a row. The other guy, and I reiterate, this is non-traditional. I think Carter Nelson could be a really good fullback that you can put out there. And I know he's 6'5", but he's 250 now. And, you get used to having a guy like that out on the field. And if he stays as elusive as he has been, he could be an offensive weapon that you just try to get on the field as much as you can. Because imagine the matchup that you have if you line up in an I formation and Carter Nelson somehow down in a 3-point stance and he goes out in the flat. I mean, how many guys are going to be able to catch him off the rip if you are able to get him in the flat on some open plays? Now, is his more natural position probably standing up? Absolutely. But that brings a lot of different variety when you open up what a fullback could be. Now,
is it low-hanging fruit if I say that his recent injury history is a little bit more nervous for me in terms of putting him in a situation where he would be in very violent collisions?
Yeah, absolutely. You're not wrong, but I also think that, his body is getting older. He's also 2 years into a strength program in which he's never had before, and he's adjusted to a completely different level of football than what he had ever played before. So the best is yet to go in front of him. But he is one of those guys that I think you call him a football player and you see what he can do best.
I would say Genatone would be a really good pick because he's an athlete. He's a super athlete and
great wrestler.
6 foot, 225. Well, he was a track guy too, right? Didn't he have some really impressive track numbers in high school back for North Platte, right?
Yeah, for North Platte. Yeah, and Genatone, I believe, was part of that team that put the 2022 West Side team down their first game. I think he was the one who snapped their winning streak there for a little bit. So, yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, he was a track guy. But you're right. He was a state title as a wrestler. That'd be an interesting one. I thought that'd be a fun little topic, though. Dana dropping the F word. What else you got going? Where else are you going to be? What else are you doing? Are you going to be hosting the morning show next week as well? I want more Austin Jacobson.
So I will be on the morning show for the foreseeable future. And that is our plan moving forward. I'll be on the Millard. I'm at Millard North softball tonight. We'll see rain withstanding. I'm sure that they'll probably just move inside if this continues. But they just got a new all turf facility for their outdoors. So I'm looking forward to seeing if maybe they'll let me sneak a peek of that before it opens up for the fall. And then tomorrow I'm at Norris volleyball. Coach Christina Bosinger is going to be awesome and let me sneak by there for a little bit. So I'm looking forward to being down there too.
You texted me you were incredibly busy, and now I know exactly why you're incredibly busy. So do you have anything else today?
Yeah, well, I'll be at Millard North softball, like I mentioned today. And then, I got to fit in a workout at some point. So probably when I hop up here.
Sleep is what you have to fit in. You have to fit in some recovery. Oh, we got a great chat in here from nobody. This is my final question for you before I let you go. Is UNK going to be good this year?
Great question. So I believe they were picked 7th and 8th in the coaches and media poll in the MIAA. I think that that's a bit egregiously low, but I also have come to understand that maybe some of those polls were put in before some roster moves that happened on both sides. I believe Emporia State lost their starting quarterback to, I think, just a complete job offer. I think he was a transfer 5th-year quarterback, and he ended up just getting a job that he was like, yeah, do this instead of playing Division II.
Like he's an insurance agent?
It was either Emporia or Fort Hays. It was one of those two schools. I'll have to double check that. But that obviously, moves you up if you lose your starting quarterback or an opponent loses a starting quarterback. But they get they get one of Millard South's finest, and Harris coming back at running back. He is going to be phenomenal for them. Had a gruesome, terrible injury against Washburn a year ago in which he ended up losing the rest of his season because of it. But he was leading the MIAA in rushing yards and in touchdowns. He was likely going to be the MIAA Offensive Player of the Year at minimum. UNK is going to be very good. And Ryan Held has had some doubters in his first few years at Kearney coming out of the Jocelyn era. But I think UNK, they should be vying for a top 4 finish this year. Now, much like Nebraska, they need to win some of their coin flip games. There have been too many times over the past few years that I think that they've lost 50-50 games where they're probably equal, if not better than in talent than other teams. But this could be a shining star of a year for Ryan Held's team. And especially if they can get Harris going early, I think that they will be a very, very talented MIAA team. Pushing for a Division II, playoff spot, probably not, but at least putting some scares into the top teams in the MIAA would be the goal.
All right, I've opened up the Pandora's box of making you a jukebox here, as now we have more comments and text messages in terms of people wanting to know your opinions on teams that people don't talk about. So from the 402, what does Austin think about Scott for this year? I'm assuming football.
Yes, well, Scott volleyball, once again, will also be very good, too. You can throw them in there. I don't know much about Scott softball. Scott football is, what's funny is that, so I mentioned Gretna East and Waverly, but Scott is completely under everyone's radar, and I think it's primarily because they don't have a returning starting quarterback. This might be one of their more complete team rosters that don't have a bunch of outliers in terms of individual talents, but I think that their overall talent is at par with the rest of Class B's contenders like Waverly, like Gretna East. They only have Wyatt Liebentrent as like their quote-unquote superstar, but Matt Turman's a great coach. He's going to get it figured out, and Scott is just so consistent. What really helps Scott out as well, including the rest of Class B, is that Elkhorn North and Bennington will not be in Class B this year. That moves a lot of people up a couple of spots, and when you only have 24 teams in a class, and 16 of them are going to make the postseason, all you got to do is win like 3 games and you're in. Scott's going to win a lot more than that, but they'll be interesting to see how much better they get as the season goes on, because we could be talking much differently about Scott at the end of the year than where we are kind of coming in, just because they're going to have a couple of more names that'll pop up here later in the season.
AJ, you're the man. Appreciate you as always. Always look forward to this interview, and we will talk to you soon, my friend.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. Matt, have a great rest of your day.
Happy to do it, as if it's like I'm pulling to get this guy to be on my radio show. I was about to say radio station. I don't know this radio station. Austin Jacobson, one of the best in business. Always love having him on here from Herd at Sports, bringing you top end high school football and just sport coverage in general. So thanks, AJ, for joining us. We also want to let you know you can always text or call in to the Equitable Bank, to the Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline, 402-951-1620. You can reach us at the Liquid Trucking Zone Twitter feed. And don't forget to email us at the Equitable Bank Zone inbox at Equitable Bank. They take bacon personally. We also want to let you know that their 5-year anniversary for their Elkhorn location is happening right now, 201-12 Pierce Street. It's next to the Family Fair at 200 First and Pacific. They have putt going on right now at that location from all the way up until 4 p.m. And starting up right now, go ahead and dunk a Doug. Our favorite old man Doug is out there at the Equitable Bank Elkhorn location celebrating their 5th year anniversary. If you donate one non-perishable food item or personal care item, you can dunk old man Doug, and all the items will be donated back into the Elkhorn community. JP was out there until 1 o'clock. He's back now. But don't forget to go and celebrate with Equitable Bank, 5 years in Elkhorn and 20 years in the Omaha area. All right, let's hit a break here as we continue to get inch a little bit closer to the weekend here on Middays with Matt. Was looking through some graphics on Twitter, found one from the Field of 68, which some people are very upset that I love that publication, but I do. I very much enjoy it. 28 players who originally were believed to be out of eligibility, but now this new injunction has been granted, allowing the class of 2022 athletes who used 4 years of their eligibility originally to now be grandfathered into the new 5-for-5 eligibility rule. 28 of those players have committed to teams to play next season. So that includes Seth Trimble, who is a very high upside guard last year for North Carolina, who's committed to Louisville. Sky Clark, a very long time at this point college basketball player, went from UCLA to LSU. We've seen here locally, Creighton, they get Brody Robinson, who Robinson had 17.6 points and 6.7 assists at Oakland College last year. His 6.7 assists were the 11th highest mark in the country. We've also seen Denzel Aberdeen, who I believe originally he was committed to Florida even before this whole thing went down, he needed a waiver or paperwork or whatever it might. Like when I went through Rothstein's Top 45, it was consistently, all right, Aberdeen is going to Florida, but you needed a waiver. Now this thing kind of, it makes it clear he will be going to Florida. So 28 players. Now that includes a handful of them who are staying with the team that they were with last season. So Sam Alexis of Indiana, he's staying with the Hoosiers. You have Josh Reed of Penn State. He's staying with Penn State. You have Philip Borachivian. He's staying with Xavier. So there are a couple of guys who are listed here as 20, the fifth-year commits, but they're not going anywhere. One guy like that is Jamarcus Lawrence, who a couple of days ago, according to the reporting of Robin Washut, joined a lawsuit to get that injunction in the state of California. So we will monitor J-Law's current situation of, will he end up getting that fifth year, and will he end up being and playing with Nebraska basketball? At this point, also the more I read about this, 5-for-5 eligibility injunction, all that type of stuff, this stuff isn't set in stone either. There still are more lawsuits that eventually could flip this decision over in the future. So once again, nothing could ever be easy in the NCAA, in the world of athletics, where I still think originally they should have just said, you know what, to avoid the headache and to put it all out here right now, if you expended all your eligibility in 4 years of the class of 2022, we're going to grandfather you in. We're just going to ignore this. Here you go. And yeah, would the transfer portal have been a little bit more hectic? Absolutely. Would it just completely avoid the headache that we have been dealing with over the last couple of weeks, where originally you think there's going to be this 7-day transfer portal window where all these different players can enter and it's going to be absolute Armageddon, and then we have to have a clarification, and then there's the appeal and the stay and this and that. You could have just avoided all this crap if you just made that original decision. At this point, it is what it is. Going back to recruiting, by the way, Nebraska is very much involved with a high-ranking high school athlete for basketball. Dawson Beatty is a 4-star power forward from Dallas, Texas. He is ranked 15th nationally in the latest Rivals ranking. He had an unofficial visit to Nebraska set for October 9th to the 11th. So he already had that set up in the future. He has now moved his visit up to September 18th through 20th, which is going to include Nebraska football's home game against North Dakota. I hope the guy likes Cole Swindell. He is 6'8". He's 215 pounds. He'd be one of the best recruits from high school that Fred Hoiberg would be able to get here into campus. Obviously, we always refer back to the 5-star Bryce McGowan's committing to Nebraska back in, that would have been 2021, 2020? I forget the years. But anyway, sources believe, though, according to Washut, Nebraska and Stanford are the clear leaders for Dawson Beatty. While SMU could try and make a late push, obviously, you have some concerns there when it comes to SMU because of all the money that they have, and that they're willing to donate. One topic we didn't get into, by the way, which was super interesting, was Kalani Sitake said that, made some comments in terms of, BYU not being where they need to be in terms of having financial support for the football team. There then came some dirt sheets out about Sitake not being very happy with a lot of the money being given to basketball. Obviously, last year basketball spent a lot of money on their roster, in particular, getting the services of AJ Dybanska, the number one recruit in the country, who then ended up becoming the number one overall pick in the NBA draft to the Washington Wizards. It's very interesting that Sataki, this happened about a week ago, where he was mentioning, hey, we're not as high as you would think in terms of spending the Big 12 on a football roster. That's so interesting to me because that guy could have gone to Penn State. If we forget, he was kind of Penn State's target. They locked in on him to bring him over to the East Coast, and kind of like the Dallas Mavericks shutting the door on DeAndre Jordan, the LA Clippers shutting the door on DeAndre Jordan, not letting him go to the Mavericks. BYU kind of shut the door on Sataki and said, what do we need to do in order to keep you here at BYU? And that kind of stemmed a lot of the crumble cookie jokes, right? Because very famously, Crumble Cookie is an organization that is rooted with BYU and gives them a ton of money and supports them financially from an athletic department perspective. It's interesting to see Sataki go ahead and say, okay, Penn State, I ain't going anywhere. I'm being given everything I want here from BYU, a place that obviously has had, very long time connections with. And then all of a sudden says, yeah, I'm not getting the support I need. Not getting the support I need for a football roster. Very, very, very interesting. So we'll see how Beatty's recruitment plays out. We'll see how Jamarcus Lawrence, how his recruitment, his not re-recruitment, but rejoining of the team potentially next year as a fifth-year senior for 2025 plays out. Dana Holgorsen was previously on the stand, not on the stand, at the podium is probably the more accurate way of putting it, talking to reporters of the Nebraska Football Media Corps. The only quote to come out so far was from Tim Verghese, who said that Dana Holgorsen said the word fullback, and everybody flipped out in the media room. Not really, but, Tim made a very good joke. Someone texted in. We got a tweet here from the Liquid Trucking Zone Twitter feed from Andrew Duncan at Matt McMedia. Didn't Bonner play fullback already? He did, but when I think of full-time fullback, I don't necessarily think of Wood, just because of he'll play it. That's the thing. That's why Dana Holgorsen loves Janiran Bonner. I mean, the way that Dana talks about Wood is incredible. I mean, there's a smile that comes up on his face every time he brings him up, because that dude is a Swiss Army knife. He's a football coach's football player. He will do whatever is asked of him just for the good of the football team. Whatever position you put Janiran Bonner in, whether it be a tight end, whether it be a wide receiver, whether it be in the slot, whether it be a fullback, he's kind of that versatile F wide receiver. He goes out there and he does it, which is why, he was going to be a focal point for them when it comes to red zone offense, which is why, funny enough, not funny enough at all, it's nothing funny about it, but, when he got hurt last year in the Cincinnati game, it came in the red zone. They had some big plans for him in that area of the field, which, the red zone is where they struggled mightily last season on both sides of the ball, might I add. And one of those reasons has to be because they relied and were counting on him being a big part of that. And he got hurt and couldn't play. He played, barely of any of the first game in the beginning of the season. And so I don't know if he'll, he's so versatile where it's I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing fullback a couple of snaps. But if they're going to go to a full-time fullback, I don't know if it would be him, because they're able to do so many different things with him, which is, why Dana loves him and why that injury was such a big deal last season. Let's go to the text line. Tony texted, I'm surprised that they're not as easy running for the football program for as much as I hear, and there's a lot of money in Utah that would go BYU's way. That was very surprising, Sataki's remarks last week, just because it was he is of one of the people we thought who had a war chest. And BYU, with some of the players that they've been able to acquire in both football and in basketball, seems like to be one of the war chest schools. And Sataki's out here saying, oh, we're not doing as good as you think in the Big 12. I don't know, man. It'll be interesting to see how all of this transpires with how players get paid, because as we, get closer to the Save College Sports Act being passed by Congress, a lot of that responsibility will be put on the shoulders of the school. So you'll still have NIL deals and you still have all of that type of stuff going on, but it'll be it'll be interesting to see. Do the donations lessen up across the country? Are they amplified? Because the idea of like, hey, like, give us money, that's less that we can spend towards actual operations and more we can spend toward actually paying our players. It's an interesting dynamic of everything that could potentially occur with the Safe College Sports Act. But I've always wondered the ROI on NIL deals, just because you have these business people who are very smart and who have made very smart business deals, to get to the point of where they're at in terms of financial freedom. And yet you're asking them to donate millions and millions of dollars that the ROI will never be anything, that is financial. You're not given, if you're just saying, hey, give us money to go and get this player, well, you're giving money not to necessarily receive money back. You're just giving money to help. And is pride enough of a return on investment for the long-term future of, donations and donors and NIL? It's an interesting question to ask. And it's interesting to see a place like BYU where we think they're set and we think that they're willing to spend a ton of money, but then in reality, their head coach is, not so much. All right, let's take a break here, wrap up this week's Middays with Matt here on the 1620 Zone Radio Network. All right, Jake, what are we watching tonight?
In the NFL preseason, you can catch Bucks at Jets on NFL Network. Cardinals Cubs is going on right now on Apple TV, with the Yankees at Blue Jays also on Apple TV at 6:15. Ion has a WNBA doubleheader as Wings go against the Fever at 6:30 and Fire at Storm at 9 p.m. And I know it's not tonight, but I thought I would still bring it up tomorrow at 10 a.m. The Big Ten Network's fall tour is making its stop at Nebraska.
Yes. So I believe they will they be able to watch the scrimmage? I wonder if they will be able to. That could be pretty valuable information that the Big Ten might have there. So we will see. Hit it.
All right, folks, let's talk right now. I'm going to kill your bookmaker. I'm going to rip his throat out. I will blow this man out. I will step on his throat until the man chokes. Let me tell you how. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. Dog. Winners. I'm on a roll.
Dude, you got to love dogs, right?
Alrighty. They've teetered just a little bit, but I'm going to take the Chicago White Sox and the power of the Pope in order to beat the Detroit Tigers. 2-day Sean Newcomb on the mound for the Sox plus 122. So there is that dog, the Chicago White Sox, to beat the Tigers and try and I believe they currently still have a lead in the NL Central, if I'm not mistaken. The Chicago White Sox.
I believe
do.
they do.
Man, that was a tough loss for them the other night, where they had Pope night and everybody was so happy and it was awesome, and then all of a sudden they lost a tough one. They dropped 2 of 3 to the Reds, but now they take on the Tigers, who are nipping at their heels for first place in the NL Central. All right, Jake, you did a great job this weekend. Thank you so much for filling in for Josh Odson. Thank you for hanging with us this entire week. Enjoy your weekend. We only have a couple more weekends without having actual regular season football. So as we mark this one off, we're only one more away from that occurring, and we are going to have a great time come that season. We're going to have a great time next week. Don't forget to join us every single day, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. here on the 1620 The Zone Radio Network. It's been Middays with Matt, USC and the Crossover with Mike Skibbs coming up next.